You better get your mood up, bro, because you got something to attend today, bro. You got your low country ball.
Yeah.
You gotta be good mood. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about that, because we were talking about it earlier, and I want to address how weird that is for the people that aren't from the South.
The South.
Which I'm not from the South, but I've lived here.
Yeah,
I grew up here, so
shit ass Michigan. Boom, shots fired. Yeah, it's basically just food, like a dinner, that kind of food, where you boil a bunch of shit, shrimp, sausage, corn, taters.
Doesn't that sound like such a weird combination of food? Shrimp, corn, sausage, potatoes.
That sounds great.
And sometimes there's like
I guess shrimp is really the only outlier.
lobster, right? And crab. I think there are sometimes.
Sometimes, usually that stuff's a little too expensive and hard to get around. Because like, if you live closer to the water, then obviously this kind of stuff's easier to do. But we usually end up just doing shrimp. I'm not a big crab or lobster guy in general.
Me
Too
neither.
much fucking work to get to the meat.
It's not even that. I just don't think it's that great. I don't know why people just go.
I mean, it's fine. It's like, it's not
People
like
be going
yeah,
goo goo
I
gaga
know.
over that shrimp, bro. I mean, not shrimp. I'm sorry, that lobster. Juicy lob, bro.
Oh,
Juicy
man.
lob.
I wish popcorn shrimp was served in movies instead of just popcorn.
I'm down for that.
Honestly, because I
Like,
think
you
I've
should-
said this before. Popcorn, worst snack.
No, I love popcorn.
I know,
Don't you dare.
but popcorn.
But you
man.
eat it every time I go to the movie. I end up
'Cause
paying for it, and
it's
you eat
there.
it.
You get it. But at the same time, it is the worst snack.
Nope, it's
Nachos
delish.
would be better. Fries would be better. Popcorn
They
shrimp.
have nachos at theaters.
Yeah, but it's usually shitty. You know what I mean? Like crappy nachos. You know what I mean? Like too small and too weird. And it's clearly an afterthought. They don't put as much time and effort into the nachos or any other snack. Even like there's some theaters that like do like you can have a pizza, like a little personal pizza you can bring in. And like that's just a microwaved $1 like Totino's pizza that they bought and they're charging you $8 for.
100%.
Yeah.
Popcorn, super cheap for them, obviously, to sell at an expensive price.
Yep. Oh.
But I love popcorn, so don't do that to me.
It's just, it gets in your teeth. It's just all weird. It's like
No, it
nothing.
tastes
and
nummy.
You
Tastes
gotta-
nummy.
I think you just like butter and salt.
On the
And
corn.
popcorn is just a medium to get those things into your mouth.
No. It's good on the corn. But what I want to talk about now that you mentioned it is that when I went to go see said movie we're about to talk about today,
Tenet. Wow.
is that look, I'm admit it.
Yep.
I'm a felon. I'm just kidding.
Oh.
Wait, hear me out.
Okay.
I'm not admitting to that. It was a joke. It's a joke.
Good one.
But I bring drinks into a theater.
Ow. Yeah.
I'm not paying for their drinks. Like if I want like a crisp Sprite
Support your local business.
or a mellow yellow, dude. If I want something to drink, I'm gonna get something like a can or a bottle, and I'm putting that thing in my jacket. And walk it in because they
What a
charge
jacket.
a ridiculous amount for their drinks.
Yep.
But usually I don't drink a lot of soda. I just drink water. Sometimes I'll bring a bottle of water into the theater, right?
Yep.
And I forgot this last time, and I got popcorn. I was like, how much are your bottle of waters? $4. $4.
You could buy a
for
32 pack of water
for a bottle of water.
for $4.
You said 2 packs?
No, I
You
said
could-
a 32 pack of water for $4.
You might be able to buy 2 32 packs, honestly.
No, that's dude.
Depends. You get that Kroger off brand.
Yeah,
It's
or I buy mine from the Dollar General, and it's not even that cheap.
But yeah, and then she's like, or I can just give you a cup of water for free. Like, and she said it in a way of like, you don't want to spend $4 for a bottle of water. I was like, ma'am,
Yeah, because
you're
I'm pretty
right.
sure any establishment that like sells food has to offer you water for free in a cup.
I don't
Pretty
know.
sure that's a thing.
No, well, she said, she's like, yeah, we just got in these free water cups. So, guess not.
I guess not. Maybe it's just restaurants. I don't know,
Yeah.
and it's not technically a restaurant.
But it's ridiculous. And I think we should boycott. I think we should bring in our own everything. Own popcorn, all of it.
Bro, seeing this movie in theaters has made me like change teams. I want movie theaters to go out of business now. I had the worst experience with this movie.
You really hurt my soul. I don't believe you. I
let me tell you
don't
about
believe you.
this.
I think
Let
you're
me
gonna have a
tell you
bad
about this.
experience and you think about that, but I will say, which is
Mm-hmm.
you know, maybe it's just because me and Nate had to see this movie in 2 separate places.
Yep.
And like usually we go to the movies together.
Yep.
We're movie buddies.
Movie buddies.
We're movies brothers. So we had to see it 2 different locations, and maybe it's because the universe knows that we shouldn't be split apart for movies.
Mhm.
Luckily, mine did not last throughout the movie, but mine did not start positive either.
Really?
Yeah.
What happened with yours?
What happened with yours?
Well,
Ooh, juicy.
so
Okay, no, you know what? I'm gonna say mine first because I feel like it's gonna not take as long.
Yeah, mine
and I
is
feel
gonna
like we
take a
gotta
while.
like sit on yours. By the way, somehow we never ended up wrapping around to. I just have to finish this off with. We started talking about food, and then we went to movie theater food.
Mhm.
Nate's about to go after we do this to a place where they dump a bunch of cooked just on the table.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Shrimp and corn.
Yep, you
and
cover your
potatoes.
table in like tin foil.
And you just devour
Dump
it
everything
like a
out. No
beast.
plates, no silverware, nothing. You just eat it all raw.
That's just so weird. That it's like, let's just dump a bunch of shrimp on the
Yep.
table. Like, I just had to address that because we were talking about it before. But
great.
now I don't even care about that topic because now you got me going on this.
Yep.
So I sit down. I get like the whole row to myself. Like there were
Mhm.
not a lot of people in this theater.
Mm-hmm.
But then like 2 minutes before the movie starts, there's this group of people, and I'm like 2 seats from the back, and they take the back row, and there's like at least 10 of them probably.
Oh.
And they're just talking. And then so they're talking, and then trailers
What's
start
this
playing.
age group?
Probably similar to ours, to be honest.
It's pretty young, yeah.
What? Are you
Oh my
okay?
gosh, yeah.
I was gonna witness
Just
you
think about
dying.
popcorn. Got one of those kernels stuck
Oh
in my
my
throat.
gosh, I hate you, dude. So I'm sitting there, and they're starting to play the trailers, and it's getting close to the movie to start. And you know, when the trailers come on, they dim the lights a bit, and the movie really starts and dims all the way.
Right.
Movie's about to start, and they're like laughing and talking, and someone's on the phone on speakerphone. Like I can hear the other person. I'm like, I was so close to getting up and be like, yo, can you stop? But I would have got.
You would have got voice cracked like you just did.
Can you
Yo, can you stop? I'm trying to watch the movie, man.
I'm just trying to watch Tenet. But I would have got jumped probably.
Yeah, there
I
are
mean-
10 of them. Group mentality, man. You would have. They
It
would
just
have
felt-
done it more, especially since they were close to our age. Chances are they would have kept doing it in spite of you because you said something.
Oh yeah, it felt like that was what was going to happen.
Yeah.
It felt not to like just put negative vibes out there, but it felt like if I said something, either they would have just kept doing it or like something would have popped off.
Yeah.
And I was alone. But if I had you there, we're going to take it, dude.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't like I had other options before that. Like I was close to getting up and moving a couple rows down because I was thinking maybe if I was a couple rows away, I couldn't really hear them with the movie. But once the movie
The thing
actually
is
started,
that
there was only one moment that I kind of heard them talk, which whatever, it's a movie
Yeah.
theater. So like that wasn't crazy. I was so worried. I was like, this is gonna suck. Like I'm gonna have to go do 2.5 hours of this,
Yep.
which maybe you did. So I'm ready to hear your experience.
Nope. My movie experience did not last the length of the movie.
Okay. Why are you looking at me like that's
So
a bad thing?
It is a bad thing. So basically, I went to the. I was in North.
Wait, you
North
walk
Atlanta
out of this
weekend.
movie?
I walked out of this movie. I saw it still, but I did walk out of this movie in the theater.
Did you see the whole thing?
Yes, I've seen the whole thing.
Okay.
But I walked out of the theater. I don't endorse this, but I pirated it. I had to. And I'm getting to it, okay? I do not endorse this. I do not pirate movies. This is a one-time thing.
You better give me a very solid reason to say that you did the right thing here.
Okay, so I was busy this weekend. Only had one time to see this movie. Went to
I'm
the
actually
Mall
really,
of Georgia.
I'm sorry. I'm really surprised because when we talk to other people that did it, you're like, nah, dude. Like I'm totally like you speak up immediately when we talk about that situation.
What do you mean, pirating?
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
like,
no,
nah,
I'm
nah,
super against it. But for this, and I mean, I still paid for the movie, sort of. I got my money back.
I see
we
what
had
you're
to have
saying.
it
I
for
see what you're
this
saying.
for this podcast. I don't pirate movies ever. It's not my thing.
At least,
but
but at least you didn't not pay for the movie and then just watch it. Like you still paid the full price to see the full thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sort of. I got my money back.
Oh, okay.
Getting to
Dang,
it.
This must have been bad, bro.
Okay, so we go to the Regal Mall of Georgia, which is like a big ass IMAX theater in Atlanta.
That was my
Or
other
in
option
Buford or
was to
whatever.
go out and tell them if they kept talking like, dude, this is ridiculous, which I guess
Go
maybe happened. But continue.
Tell the
Sorry.
manager. No, so we go, get our tickets, which are much more expensive. It was like $17 up there, opposed to it's like $10 in NCG, right?
Did you see this with your brother?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we go, bought our tickets. We're going. We're fine. Although I had just right before we went to this, I had just lost my shoes, and I was really upset about it because it was my slides, which later I found them the next day. But at the time period, they were just gone. I thought I'd like left them in a lake or something, and I was really pissed.
Just left them in a lake. What? We're just,
Listen.
Oh, I remember. I put them at the bottom of the freaking lake.
If you know me,
that
that makes perfect sense. Okay. So I already went into this kind of in a little bit of a sour mood because of that, because I love those slides. I've been wearing them all summer.
I feel
no
like you
real
don't
shoes.
have a like this is not going to be a good review because he's going into this just pissed off.
Yep, a little bit. So, and then we go into the theater, and it's a little strange because we go in, and the first trailer already started, but it's in like how sometimes when they're showing trailers, it was for a movie that had no one in it I recognized. What it looked like it was a foreign kind of film. So I was like, okay, they're showing a trailer, but the trailer looked terrible, and just as far as how it literally looked like it was 480p, opposed to which is like half of the standard, half the resolution of like 1080p or higher, which is when you go to a theater, you're expecting HD because you're paying for that experience. Yeah, exactly. So I was like, okay, well, it's kind of weird because it's in like a little box in the middle of the screen. It's not taking up the full thing, and it's in this super crappy low resolution, and the audio's off. But I was like, I guess the trailer's just screwed up. And then it starts playing like trailers for movies that we know. Yeah. And I was like, uh-oh, this isn't good. Yeah. And I was also noticing the lights aren't turning off. Just the lights are still on, even though, when trailers start, lights turn down. Yeah. Just like it's going to be in the movie. Nope. I'm sitting here watching the Dune trailer, which is brand new, which I was actually, part of the reason I was excited to see this movie is because I knew that they were playing a Dune trailer I hadn't seen yet in front of it.
First of all, we could talk about that because I never even heard of it, but it looked dope.
Dune?
What is this? This looks dope.
Oh, I've talked about it. Yeah, it's one of the things that I'm looking forward to watching. But
me too now.
Yeah, okay. It does look dope. But that trailer, still same thing. 480p, little box in the middle of the screen, sound is all crappy. I'm like, what is going on? And then I'm like, okay, this has to be fixed when that movie actually starts, right? Nope. Just straight into the first 5 minutes of Tenet, and it's like room. That whole opera scene is just bright room, terrible resolution, shitty screen. So I'm like, okay, nope, not doing this. There's a couple other people in the theater too. Nothing, no complaints. I'm like, are you people insane? So I walk out, go to the manager. This whole place is run by like 17-year-old kids. I'm not gonna lie. So I was like, I walk up to a group of them. They're not doing anything because it's slow, and they're just standing around the concession thing. And I'm like, hey man, theater that I'm in, theater 1 or whatever. It's that movie is terrible resolution, audio's fucked up, and the lights are still on. And he was like, yo, bro, that's crazy. And I was like, I don't. Which I was like, I don't give a fuck if that's crazy.
Do something about it.
Yeah, and he was like, he got on a walk and he was talking to the guy, and whoever does the. I don't know.
Projection
stuff, but it's all digital now, so it's not even really a job as far as I know. It's literally just hitting play, because used to be you'd have to like splice the film together and like actually it was like a skill to it, back then. But now that it's digital, it's basically just plugging in a flash drive and it just goes. And I'm like, okay, I just don't know how you fuck this up, especially since that's all you have to do. But he's like on the thing, and he's like, yeah, it's kind of weird. The lights just aren't turned off. So the resolution, he goes, looks fine to me. No, bro. No. No.
Were you and your brother like talking
It was
about
just
this?
me at first. I just walked out to see if I could get it fixed, and he was like,
No, but you and your brother were in the theater like talking about it. Like, he noticed,
but we
right?
waited of course. We were both like,
figured.
what is going on? Yeah, it wasn't just me. And so I go back into the theater. I give him 25 minutes, the first 25 minutes of the film to get it fixed. Nothing happened. So I walk right back. I take Joe and I, we walk out, we go to the manager, and we're like, we got to get our money back. Dude, you guys aren't fixing this stuff. And he was like, well, I can't just like give you all your money back. And I was like, you want to look at it? And so we walk back to the theater. I show him to him, and I'm like, look at that. And he looks at it for a couple seconds. He's like, I don't see anything wrong. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Then I showed him the trailer on my phone, and I'm looking, and I'm going, look at this, look at that. And I'm like, I'm not messing around with this dude, man. I am pissed off because, fuck, I'm getting my $17 back for this shitty-ass experience. Yeah. And he's like, it's not the best quality, but, like, this is just how they gave it to us. And I was like, you're fucking... oh, my God. I was so pissed. I was like, give me my money back. And we watched down, and in silence, he's, like, counting out my cash to get it back. And I said, thank you so much. And I walk out of the thing. Terrible. Oh, it was just... the worst experience ever. It's like that's supposed to be kind of like one of the best theaters in Georgia. You know what I mean? It's like the big one in the middle of the Mall of Georgia. It's like a 2-story Regal IMAX theater, and it's like complete shit. Awful. Honestly, makes me so glad for NCG because like the seats were terrible in there. All like they didn't recline at all. It felt like it was an airplane seat. They're just like perfectly stiff and like, ugh, man, would not recommend.
I will say,
fuck Regal.
I will
of Mall of Georgia Regal. Fuck that place.
I will say that like I feel spoiled with NCG because every time I go to another movie theater, not that I don't enjoy it, but like I know this is gonna sound super weird and kind of on a different tangent because I want to touch on all the stuff you went through, but NCG just feels like home. Like it's my little like place that I'm familiar with.
We've been there
it's comfortable
a million times, and it's always been good shit.
Great. Yeah. So, good job. Good clickbait getting people to listen to your story. I don't believe you. I believe the story. I don't believe that you don't want theaters to stick around because of this.
I'm just saying, we watched New Mutants and that movie was just so shit. And I was like, God, that's the only good experience I've had with movies post-corona. I've been Back to the Future. And I'm
really sad, but here's my goal. I'm really sad because this is a theater I think you should see. A movie you should see in theaters.
I know. Yeah. So, man, I ended up watching it in crappy resolution anyway. Because,
really?
Yeah, because it was I watched it on a Serbian torrent site. You know what I mean? There was no good resolution with that. I know.
I'm so sad.
It's a shitty situation. I thought about calling you and delaying it, but we would have had to put it off until the podcast would have been out, and I didn't want to do all that. So I already saw it. So
well, maybe we'll do. And again, this depends on. I don't think that you think this movie is so terrible, because I'm not going to even predict whether you think it's good or bad, but I don't think you're going to think it's so terrible that you wouldn't see it again. But because this is a Christopher Nolan film, light spoilers, I guess, which it's not really, but this is a movie that once you see it once, you probably want to see it again because there's a lot to unpack. Yeah. And so my goal would be, because I kind of want to see this again in theaters. And you know me, I like seeing movies multiple times in theaters. You not so much. Yeah. I understand that just because like that gets expensive, whatever. Right. But especially since you haven't seen it and you got your money back, so you haven't really spent the money to see it in theaters. After we talk about it here, maybe we can touch on it again when we talk about our next movie. Give a couple final thoughts if we're able to go see it again. I would love to go see it again with you, but we could talk about the actual movie itself and figure out if it's worth it. Yeah, I will tell you this. Maybe this is a spoiler for my hot take. Not fully, but I do. It's intriguing enough that I want to see it again. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I don't honestly. I feel like you're going to be doing the brunt of the work here because I just don't feel like I got a good experience on this, and I don't really feel like I have a good grasp on it to like fully give an opinion. I enjoyed what I saw, and so I would definitely be down to see it again. But the way I saw it and the whole process I had to go through, man, it just kind of, I don't know. I just felt so disconnected by the time I was actually seeing it. It really did affect, like, unfortunately, how I see it. And that's why I'm so pissed off at Regal, is because, like, they just totally fucked up my for a movie I've been looking forward to for a while, totally fucked up that experience.
But to be fair, you can't, and I know you know this, but, like, that's not a all movie theaters thing. But I don't wish that upon you. I don't wish this upon you, but it's kind of great that something like that happened because it's hilarious to hear about.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was like, that was the silver lining, and I was like, I'll have something to rant about. Yeah, I love that.
Now that we have a podcast, we always have a silver lining to bad situations. You go, well, it makes a good story. Well, I didn't have that issue. Not to rub it in, but just trying to convince you to go see it in theaters again. My seats were very comfy. Slight recline, Yep. Saw this in the Extreme Theater, so its version of soft IMAX. Yep. And quality was as we expect.
Top notch.
So we just got to go back to NCG, bro. Yep. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
I couldn't even make out their facial expressions correctly.
Even on when you watched it later?
No. I'm saying in the theater when I watched it. It was so bad. Like,
no one else said anything.
No one else cared.
Even if the lights didn't go off and it was good resolution, I would have been like, you need to do something about this. Yeah. And I would have asked for my money back just if the lights didn't go off. Because that would bother the crap out of me. Yes, and it did bother me. Especially since, like, at one point, they got the lights to go off, but, like, all but, like, one of them, like, over my head somehow. Of course.
Oh, my God. It was just, man, talk about just shit.
Well, there's a little bit.
Never
of
going anywhere but NCG again. Even when I move away from like Newton and shit like that, I'm just gonna keep driving back down.
There's more NCGs, so
not
are
not in Georgia. I don't think.
Yeah, there are. I've been to one in it's like Marietta or Kennesaw, so close
nice.
to like where I'm looking to move to. Have an NCG, but then again, just because I have NCG doesn't mean that the people running that NCG aren't garbage.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not Regal's fault. Just somehow the people there. Here's my thing. I guess that manager that I spoke to must get in trouble for giving refunds. That's what my thought is. Because why would he be so hesitant to? I mean, he's not blind. You know what I mean? Why was he so hesitant to give me my money back?
Maybe it happens
Clearly,
more often than not.
If so, man, get a new job, my guy. That's fucked up.
Yeah, because like obviously, if it's not, especially if it's not his fault that it's happening, I'd be like, I can't work in a place where.
Well, yeah, he's not running the projections, so either they have just really crappy people who are running it that he hasn't gotten rid of and hired others, or they just don't care to, or there actually something is wrong with the equipment and they're just not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that obviously movie theaters are struggling, but you still you can't like present that you're gonna offer a top-notch product and then offer halfway through. I mean, I'm paying for a product and you're giving me the bastardization of that product by showing it in 480 with fucked up audio and stuff like that. That's not worth $17 for me.
No.
So but yeah, I guess
we jump into a little bit of movie news.
Is there some stuff to talk about?
Not a lot of crazy stuff, but there's this photo going around from Mission Impossible 7.
Is that the space one?
Well, we
know that
we
Tom
made
Cruise,
that connection.
Okay, we know that Tom Cruise is doing a space movie with Elon Musk, and we know they're making a Mission Impossible 7.
My prediction was
they're the
it's
same.
a Mission Impossible movie.
That just makes the most amount of sense.
Because if they're gonna make it crazy, you got to keep up in the ante.
Exactly.
Well, they haven't gone to space yet.
But that's got. I mean, if they go to space, that feels like that has to be the last Mission Impossible they do. Because how do you top that?
You don't have to.
You don't have to. I don't. Okay, Mission Impossible feels like the franchise where it's just like I go to see it because I want to see all the new crazy shit. I don't really care about the story.
Right, and it's almost like the reason I say you don't have to, which I'm not saying necessarily applies to Mission Impossible, but like for Marvel movies when they had like Avengers.
Yeah, they'll have like Endgame. And then they can't keep
or like Avengers. Then they have like the Captain America 2, which can like bring it back down a little more to grounded. Like it's still entertaining, but it's not like we're having a giant battle in New York City. Kind of. Well, actually, there kind of was in Captain America 2 because there's the giant helicarriers. But most of the movie felt more grounded.
Yeah.
Don't know if they can do that with Mission Impossible, but there's a picture that they're teasing of a giant ramp on the edge of a mountain that looks like they're just gonna like drive a car off, maybe just off the edge of a mountain, and it looks dope. And I'm gonna say that this is their spaceship launching.
That spaceships don't launch with ramps, right?
But this is gonna be Mission
Never
Impossible.
have.
It's a car spaceship.
It's a Tesla. Boom, Elon.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, how all the movies have, like, cars that kind of roll up into frame and you see the logo because whatever car is how they sponsor the movie.
Yes.
It was like Tesla.
Yeah.
Because that'll be the first one that, like, Tesla would sponsor, if that's true, which I don't know if that will happen. But I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I feel like in this, I mean, Tom Cruise always is riding a motorcycle in like all of his movies. That's kind of like feels like his thing for an action movie. So he's probably going to jump that with a motorcycle, if I had to guess. Tesla should make a motorcycle. That'd be cool. An all-electric motorcycle.
What?
Tesla should make an all-electric motorcycle.
I agree.
Dope,
I mean,
actually,
they went big. They made a friggin' semi, so what? Give us motorcycles.
I didn't know they made a semi. Shit.
Yeah, they made like a giant semi truck for truckers.
Yeah? Yeah.
Anyways, this is from, is it the director? I don't know. But it says Mission Impossible Day 1. Action, ... That's like the...
So are they filming? With some kind of
like first date.
like socially distant filming process?
Apparently there's photos from them being on like a cruise ship as well. So we know cruise ship and we know giant ramp on the edge of a mountain.
Tom Cruise ship.
I wonder how much it costs to build one of these things. And would you just like
maybe it was already there
off that? Like how would you
drive off, jump out, parachute?
That's what I'm thinking. Like that That is.
The real question is,
That's
why do
like-
they have to do that?
Like,
What's going on in the film where that's the appropriate thing to do?
Well, my thing is, I feel like this ramp has to be like done over with like CGI or set pieces or something, because this ramp looks so out of place. It's like a bunch of scaffolding and a road that's very clearly set up to look like a ramp. And I'm like, I feel like there's no reason, unless the movie is about how they're breaking into a set. And
Yeah, I was about to say, what is the explanation in film for that ramp to exist?
there's not. Yeah, but it looks interesting. I just thought I get kind of giddy when it comes to some of those stunt things, and this looks
Crazy stunts.
This, I mean, I want to see Mission Impossible 7 anyways, but this is like, I'm definitely.
Do you think that's how
watching
Tom Cruise will eventually die? Just doing something
Do you
crazy
think
when
that's how
he's too old?
Do you think that's how he wants to die?
Maybe. It'd be weird to... I just can't imagine Tom Cruise ever actually being old. Like, he's old, but he can't, like, become gray and old. You know what I mean? That's going to be weird.
Think he's gonna live forever?
Scientology, dude. If
Mission
anybody.
Impossible.
He's
72.
like number one in Scientology. Like, he's the head of it basically
I know.
now. So it's like, if any actor was gonna live forever, it would be him.
Because you think Scientology is the one that's is the thing that's gonna allow people
I don't
to
know,
live
man.
forever?
If there were any cult that had power and stuff like that, it's Scientology.
Just because they got to put the word. Why do they have to take the word science and make it crazy? You know, give us science. I want science.
I know it really doesn't have anything to do with science.
All right,
From what I
I have a
understand.
little bit of news regarding the last movie we watched,
Silence of the Lambs?
The New Mutants,
Oh, the New Mutants. Yeah. Ugh.
which was
If
the
you didn't
best-
hear,
be-
the
best
worst
movie I've ever
film
seen.
2020, maybe
No.
2019.
You said the worst movie you've seen in the past year. If you go back and watch that podcast,
Oh my
we
God.
both said that.
I think I was okay. Whatever.
And
Go
it
on.
was. Come on. You know, if you have
Yeah,
that
probably
visceral reaction coming out of it, and we paid money to go to a theater to watch that.
Ugh.
But
get
you
your
had a
money.
better experience with that than you did with
Because at least it was a movie.
the better movie. So this movie had a budget. New Mutants had a budget of.
Pretty low, right?
Can you guess? Play a little guessing games here
I
today.
thought it was really low, like 15 million or something like that.
No, 67 million.
Really? That high?
Mhm.
Shit.
67 million for New Mutants, and guess how much it has already made? Do you think it's a lot? Do you think they haven't made it? Do you think that they surpassed
I don't
it?
think it's been a lot. I mean,
Because obviously-
even Tenet's not making a lot yet. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
so. I mean, well, Tenet's doing okay considering, but I honestly have no idea what. 45 million.
It has made just okay. Well, let's go total. Total 19 million.
Ooh, shit. That's like total international.
Total worldwide.
Wow. Holy crap. That is. It deserves it. That's
Domestic.
what it deserves.
Domestic. It's made 11 million. International 8.5. So it's hovering around that 20, and it looks like it's pretty. At least I don't know how. Do you know about the theater you went to? I know NCG is basically taking movies one by one. They
Mhm.
showed New Mutants for like 2 weeks.
Yep.
They completely got rid of it, and they're showing
Tenet. Yeah.
in like all of the theaters.
Yeah, like the theater we went to, we were actually late for our showing. Like, we were supposed to get there at 7:10. We got there at 7:20. There was another one starting at 7:20. They were showing it basically every 15 minutes.
Right. So in pretty much every theater.
Yeah.
So it seems like most theaters are doing that, which doesn't really bode well for the. I mean, I guess their thought process is probably, well, let's just put it out to theaters. It's here. Make as much money as we can. Put it on streaming.
Well,
Would be my thought process.
because New Mutants, I'm sure, no, they didn't really advertise for it at all. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They totally didn't have any faith in it, and people have probably heard that it's terrible by now. And there was no hype behind it. People don't want to see it, and people are still not really going to the theater all that much.
Yo, so again, this is one person's
Yeah.
opinion, but for some reason, because of how bad it was, I'm surprised that anybody could like it.
Mhm.
Because I'm sure the majority are probably negative, I would think. But I saw somebody comment on someone's YouTube video about movies or something and
Mhm.
talking about like New Mutants came out and it's amazing,
Oh,
and I'm like.
God.
And I don't know. I feel like it's not even worth bringing up because everyone has their own opinions, and someone's going to think it's good. But the fact that I saw one positive makes me frustrated because of how bad it was.
Honestly, even when I was reading some of the Rotten Tomatoes reviews of it, I was surprised that they weren't meaner towards it. It really is just god awful, and I can't imagine that like some people were like, even then it was like it's okay. Like you review movies for a living, and you thought it's okay. That just seems insane to me, honestly.
Yeah, it's
because
got 32% on Rotten Tomatoes. It should definitely be lower.
That's higher than it was when I checked it. It was in the 20s.
Really?
Yeah, so 32. Holy shit. That's too high.
Yes, it is.
That is too high for that. It's like a 16% movie.
So it opened in 2,412 theaters, and opening weekend 7 million.
Wow.
Which, for a superhero movie that has to do with X-Men in some way.
And has, like, some semi-famous, like, people, it's not a completely just unknown movie, you know what I mean? There's some actors, they're all young, and from, like, stuff like Stranger Things and stuff like that, where people should
Stranger
be like...
Things and
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
2 really big shows.
Mm-hmm.
And they got people from both of those, so... Well, there that is. So, now, just on opening weekend, Tenet has made, remember, New Mutants, I said, made 19.9, so 20 million opening weekend.
Yep.
Or, I'm sorry, no, total so far, 20 million. Tenet worldwide, 146 million so far.
Yeah, it came out just this Friday, right? Or I guess it came out kind of on Monday. Wasn't it weird where it was coming out early in the week?
I don't know.
It's been showing like all last week, kind of.
Yeah,
that's what I heard.
It did. I'm sorry, I forgot. Yeah, I guess it showed in a couple theaters in Atlanta, maybe in big cities.
I went Saturday night prime time, 7:00. Where
me too.
And there was only two other groups.
Did you say 7:20, bro?
Yeah,
me too.
Oh,
no, mine was 7:25, bro.
Ah, dang. Yeah. So I went to. There were only basically 3 other people other than Jonah and I in that showing.
Yeah, mine was.
And the other showings that I looked at the reserved seating for, none of them were reserved.
Mine was.
So I was like,
yeah, that's really crazy for a Christopher Nolan film.
That's what I'm
so
saying.
big.
Like, it's not making money around here. You know what I mean? I don't know where it's making. You said it's made about 156 million or something like that so far.
146.
146.
Worldwide.
Where is that?
Domestically, 20.
Okay.
Well, domestically 20 million. International is 126.
Yeah.
So domestically 20 million, but domestically New Mutants is 11. So it's made double, and it's been out half of the time. So in theory, that's 4 times as much for the time.
I don't understand. Was it just because we were going on the free days when we went to NCG, and that's why those theaters were actually busy? Like,
maybe.
Remember we tried to see Jurassic Park, and it was completely sold out. And then
again,
Back to the Future 1 and 2.
We say sold out 30%
limited capacity, yeah. But still, that showed that people were willing to go. And now that the newest movies we've seen, both of them have been basically to empty theaters.
Well, I think it also might have to do with because those older movies, there was only 1, maybe 2 actual theaters showing the same movie. I don't think they actually did duplicate theaters. I'm sorry. It's hard because I don't know how to explain this. Not like the theater building, but NCG has different theaters. Yeah, screens. Sorry, that's the best way to say it. Only had like 1 screen per movie. Back to the Future, stuff like that. Whereas this one is dispersed and has a lot of movie time. So maybe there's just as much.
But Back to the Future was playing for weeks in NCG.
Yeah. But
so was Jurassic Park. I'm just saying, like, it's so weird to me that when people were going to the theaters actively, basically as much as they could when it was showing the older stuff. But now that we've started actually showing new movies,
maybe we picked the popular ones like Jurassic Park and Back to the Future. Sound like the 2 really popular ones. Maybe the other ones had very, very few people. And again, it was 1 theater. So maybe with all of the screens showing in all of the theaters, there's maybe just as much, but it seems more dispersed.
Right. I'm just worried because Tenet should have drove people to the theaters more, and it seems like they were willing to go to the theaters. Like, they weren't scared of getting COVID, at least around us. It's just that they weren't interested in what was coming out, and they just said, "Nah, I guess I'll just wait." Which New Mutants I get. Tenet should have drove people to the theaters.
Do you know how much of a budget Tenet had?
200 million?
225 million.
Oh yeah,
which is huge because the biggest budget for movies I think were the 2 Avengers films.
It was like 500 million.
500. No, I think it was with both of them together, but I could be wrong.
I'm pretty sure it was 500 each. 200 million for a blockbuster is pretty standard.
I thought it was like 100 to 150 was pretty standard for a blockbuster.
I don't know. I think pretty much all of Nolan's films since inception have been around the 200 million mark.
Infinity War is 316.
Oh wow.
Endgame budget 356.
Okay,
so definitely a lot higher though.
617 or something like that. 620.
Average,
which is definitely super high, but
average budget for a blockbuster movie, only on a quick Google search.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this can't be right.
What
65 million.
Well, what is it considering a blockbuster?
That's what I'm saying.
I'm talking about like the big 10 holes.
It just says
of the year.
The average cost to produce a major studio movie has been 65, but that's not quite what we're talking about.
Yeah,
we're talking about
Fast and Furious, Marvel movies, Christopher Nolan shit, like
films,
the DC shit, like
the top 10 movies of the year.
Yes,
yeah.
And of the 5, maybe 10 years, 10 years probably pushing it. Behind that, yeah. So I mean, That's probably just talking about AAA title movies,
Right.
like movies that get widespread release in
So
general.
I'm wondering if this movie will make its money back.
Well, it probably will internationally, total, but not here.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Total.
Yeah.
That's all that matters is total.
Yeah, but domestic, man, that's a piss poor number right there for this. I mean, 20 million, and Hardy haven't been. This should have opened to like 60, or higher, considering it was the first real movie people could go out and see.
So I'm gonna look at, just to kind of compare another Christopher Nolan film, which is Inception, which is just one that's stuck with people. I would say even more so than Interstellar, as far as like there's been memes made of it, like how people know it. Like I guarantee,
Probably
if you
more
took a
Interstellar
poll,
memes than there are just because of Matthew McConaughey's face.
My point is, in everyday life, people use the term Inception now.
Yeah, it kind of like brought in the word
It transcended,
Inception.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
in my opinion, I think that if you
maybe people
ask,
say it wrong, because
I've heard of people that have never. I mean, this is not a lot, but who don't really know as much or know even that it exists. Interstellar. I think if you polled people, more people would know more about Inception than.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah,
I'm trying to see Inception opening.
I'm not saying I'm a bigger fan of Interstellar than I am of Inception.
Are you?
No.
Oh no,
I don't.
no. Opening weekend.
I like Interstellar a lot. It's just got a bad ending, unfortunately.
Just because, and granted, this was 10 years ago. This is 2010. Yep. Domestic box office. Oh, this is total, but still total. It made $292 million domestic. Opening weekend. 62 million. Domestic share 36 though, because that's total.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's.
Well, that was also 10 years ago.
Well, still, people.
The way
going to
people go
theaters
out
more.
to theaters is, what I mean, it's different. But I'm just saying, 20 million seems really low, considering it's like the only thing in town, basically, right? I mean, like, I don't know what else was going on in Inception right now, but I mean, they didn't have. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I don't know how big it could have been, considering the limited capacity theaters and all that kind of stuff. And there's probably less theaters because probably a lot of them have closed down, and just probably just a whole bunch of problems like that. But I would have imagined that it would be doing better than it is, but maybe it's doing just fine. I don't know. 20 million just felt low, but maybe that's where we're at in this post Rona world.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyways, I guess we can jump into the actual film now.
The actual film. Hot takes. Or do you want to synopsize? Which one do we do? Or we do synopsis first, don't we?
Synopsize? I feel like you aren't going to.
You're going to do the synopsis. I know what happens in the movie, but you're going to do it.
All right. So this movie is called Tenet.
Wow.
And it's about time inversion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Somehow.
basically there's this guy who is what appears to be a part of some military, like United States military group. And
Don't they say CIA?
is it CIA? I can't really remember.
He's a secret agent.
He is a secret agent. Well, regardless.
Yeah.
So there's a guy, and he is a CIA secret agent man. And I'm really trying to figure out how to approach this without spoiling it. But basically, the movie opens up. He's on a mission. There's a terrorist group attacking an opera house, and he has to run in and basically get somebody out, someone of importance. Typical kind of CIA kind of operative, mission. Yeah. And after at the end of that mission, he decides. And again, this is what I call light spoilers because I feel like I have to dive through the beginning part of the plot, which you might consider a spoiler because the twist very small twist that happens at the beginning, I don't even like to know about. So if you don't hear any spoilers, then I don't know, skip past this part because we're gonna give our hot takes after this.
Well, I guess very quick synopsis: CIA agent has to thwart a plan involving time inversion to stop the world from ending.
Yeah, and you can get that, but the thing is, you can get that from the trailer. So
yeah,
there you go.
There you go.
That is a very, very brief synopsis. Then we can give our hot takes and give a little more in-depth synopsis and then go completely into it. But yeah, and in case you didn't know, time inversion, which this is not giving it away, is basically going backwards in time. It's not like it's a different form of time travel than I think we've ever really seen, which is you go into a time machine, you pick a date, and you immediately travel to that date. Whereas this, you have to live everything out backwards if you want to get to a certain date. So, everything around you is moving in reverse, and you're just moving a different direction in time. So because of, he basically has to, like you said, thwart this evil man's plan, and he does it with either the help of or without the time inversion, because the other guy also has it as well. So they get into some crazy heist type stuff with some trippy visuals, similar to like, not necessarily in exactly what happens, but in similar style of like Inception, where you're like, whoa, this is crazy mind bending.
This
like
movie is very Inception.
Really, very much makes you think. Like I was saying before, why I was excited to see this movie is the plot of this is driven through the crazy visuals.
Yeah, Nolan's known for being the quote-unquote thinking man's blockbuster, right?
Right. So that's basically what it's about. But I wanted to give a little bit of that backstory of how it does progress the story through the time inversion and all that stuff without giving too much away. I guess we'll give our hot takes now and then give a little more in-depth synopsis. Mm-hmm. If you're interested in hearing that, then we're going full spoil.
Full spoil.
I kind of want to hear yours first, just because it's wait on mine, because we don't really know what mine is yet. Give a little more attention, because I feel like we're getting a vibe that you don't have a very strong opinion, so just lay it out there. This
movie, to me, is Inception, but with just missing some parts of it, because some aspects of this movie that make, like, it's Inception and kind of and feels that way in concept and how they go about things, and visually there's a lot of cool stuff going on, but what kind of makes Inception really work, personally for me, are characters. Leonardo, I can't remember his name, but in Leonardo DiCaprio's character in Inception and his relationship with his wife who died and all the dream stuff, I really like that, and it kind of helped tethered me to the story and helped me be invested. And this, I don't really care about the protagonist. He doesn't have a name ever in the movie.
Right. If you look up the cast and the characters' names, the name they use for the character is the protagonist, because you never find out his actual name.
Right. Him and the woman have that kind of relationship, but it never stuck for me. I didn't have anything to attach myself to emotionally with this movie, as far as the characters. And the core concept of the inverse time thing felt a little gimmicky, and was kind of, because in Inception, it's like, you could say it's a gimmick that they're doing the dream stuff, but it serves a very like important purpose, and like why they're doing it. They have to have this guy feel like he came to an idea on his own, and this is the way that they can do that very stealthily, right? I like that. But in this, it's like, it makes me wonder, and maybe I'm wrong, why do they need the time reversal stuff? Like, why is it important that a bullet goes backwards into a gun opposed to forwards out of a gun? Is that important? Does that make it better? Do you need, like, you know what I mean? Like, why is it important that you have a fist fight backwards? Does that help you in a fist fight? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think you're missing a part of.
Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, I'm not going to, because I have to provide evidence. So, but continue with your raw thoughts before we discuss. These are your raw thoughts.
No, I'm not saying like right that second. I mean, I kind of implied it, but I get.
You were like, tell me wrong. Wait.
Yeah. So, like I said, very could be wrong. I did not watch this movie in the best of scenarios. There were Serbian closed captions at the bottom the whole time. It was a mess. So, I do not feel like I'm an expert on this movie. I probably missed a lot. I get the general gist of, like, bad guy wants time algorithm to reverse implode the world or some shit, and he was married to a woman, and the woman didn't like him. They went on a cruise, and it was weird, man. I don't know.
Which is so interesting, because I think if you watch this again, you'll have more you like movies where you can pick stuff apart, and boy, there is so much you can pick apart here, but I think it gives you a lot. Whether it gives you enough to piece it all together, it gives you a lot to think that you can, because I haven't fully come to that conclusion of whether you can or not, which is why I want to watch it again. But you like those things. I think you just felt detached, like you weren't given everything because you felt some detached.
Man, yeah. I mean, I just don't know if this movie could live up to its own hype, because I feel like it had a lot behind it, just because of all the delays and Christopher Nolan's name and all that kind of stuff. I feel like, especially the way I went into it with kind of a sour attitude, having to, do it online and all that bullshit. I just think it had to blow me away in order for it to to break through all those barriers I had put up going into it, and it didn't crack that.
But that's
like on me,
right? Like you were saying with some of the other movies that I've gone into before, it's like putting up a wall or or giving it more expectation than it deserves. Not that it doesn't deserve to, like it might be really good, but like making it live up to certain things that it shouldn't have to. You know what I mean? Like it shouldn't have to make you like. Yeah.
Right. It's on me. That's why I am down. I never said it expressly before, but I am down to actually really watch this. In the proper setting and hopefully in a better mood. I just got shafted with my experience and my limited time this weekend and that kind of stuff. So unfortunately, that's just where I'm at. So right now, I can appreciate that it's well made. I just didn't really stick with me. So that's kind of my hot take.
Right. Okay, so my take is I really enjoyed this movie. And, okay, so let me address something that you said as far as the time travel, inversion, feeling kind of gimmicky. And I could see that because time, like in Inception, they talked about dreams and stuff, and there was an intent purpose for sure, but it didn't really feel as gimmicky, probably because dream stuff hadn't been done a lot as far as even in the times that it's been done. Inception did it in a different way, which made it new and refreshing.
Right.
That's actually why I like this movie, is because I didn't think there was another way to look at time travel, and this provided another way to look at time travel. In my eyes, like this was showing time travel in a way I've never seen before, and I was like, leave it to Christopher Nolan to show us something that's been done a million times in a different way. Doesn't mean the movie's good just because you're doing something different.
Yes.
But I can appreciate that technical aspect that I've never seen it done in that way.
I guess just to redefine my point, though, it didn't feel gimmicky because time travel stuff has been done a lot. It felt gimmicky because I didn't feel like there was a really good excuse for it to be in the movie. Like, I didn't understand. I mean, certain aspects of it, like maybe the total doomsday part of it, I could get behind as far as like reversing everything until it, I guess, explodes or implodes on itself, like the algorithm for the inversion. But having bullets move backward and like the smaller things around like all the different kind of stuff didn't feel important and necessary.
So, okay, I'm going to let me give my. I want to kind of back that up, but let me give my before I try to refute that. Give my opinion before I touch on that. I really like this movie. It was cool because, again, like you said, Inception vibes. Not that I want to directly compare it, but Inception's better in my opinion. Which because of the same reasons that you said, there were points in this movie that felt like I should be getting a lot more from the characters. Yeah. And I saw somebody do a review on this movie, and they were talking about
cheated.
No, afterwards. Oh, let me put this out here. I researched this movie before we did this.
Really?
Yes, because there was so much stuff, and I didn't want to go into going. I don't know, just over and over. So I felt like I had I wanted to. I wanted to give myself more to think about, more to talk about. So that's a good enough reason for me. But also, I feel like I have a duty to come on here and talk more than just, well, this was confusing, so I don't really have much to say. Because there were a lot of points in that.
Should I feel called out?
I think that, like I said, Inception I liked more because I feel like the characters in this movie didn't really pull me in as much. Oh, this is what I was getting at. The person that I saw who did a review on this movie and talked about it was saying that that Christopher Nolan is not really known for giving us movies that are super character driven, and that it's more about the cerebral approach and making you think, and that you can get so caught up in that and appreciate that to a level that it doesn't really the character parts don't really matter as much.
I would argue against that because
I would too.
Inception, The Dark Knight, and Interstellar are all heavy. I do too. Agree that have
because
heavy character.
Even if that person who was doing that review was correct, and again, I respect their opinion, but even if I agreed with that opinion, they how much better would it be to have a movie that has both?
Yeah.
Why should you sacrifice the characters for the craziness on screen? Not just the visual effects, but the things that do make you think. because it would just make for a better movie. And characters are kind of what drives a movie. It's what makes we are people watching people. Mm-hmm. That's what allows us to connect to a movie, in my eyes. That's why I am always so character-driven. And that's where it fell a little flat for me. I didn't care as much. I do think, for example, in Inception, we felt more involved. And this one, maybe, I don't want to say there were too many characters, because I still think you could have done it, but like Inception, you felt for the main character and the other people that were helping him, his little crew that helps him in his like time or his dream heist situation. You don't know much about, but they do a very good job making it clear what each person's specialty and purpose is, and then they have their own characteristics that I don't want to say make them stereotyped and like in this bubble, but they do their actions in certain ways that you instantly go, this is the kind of person this is, and you can feel for them and like them. Right. Like, for example, Tom Hardy, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, you don't know much about their actual characters and their backstory, but it doesn't really matter because they're serving the purpose of the film, and you know what they're there for, and they provide the entertainment in the way that's necessary because you're so invested in the main character's story. Whereas this main character, again, like you said, wasn't as tied to.
Does he? I mean, answer me this: What is John David Washington's character, the protagonist? What's his like? Does he have an arc really in this? Because I just don't know anything about him, really.
Right. So before I'm just trying to quickly wrap up my thoughts. That's part of the reason that I wasn't as invested and a little disappointed that I felt like I could have done so much more. But this apparently, I also heard, was his take. Christopher Nolan said this is kind of his take on a Bond movie. Very similar, like secret agent dude. There's a lot of exposition through characters trying to take on the evil guys, trying to take over the world or do something crazy like that. And they have to go through these different heists and different stuff. And I felt that was cool. In that aspect, maybe pulled me through with the idea of the time inversion. And once I got on board with what they were trying to do, it was more that I was following along with the purpose of what the actions they were trying to do was. That made it interesting enough for me to, keep going. And actually, I really did enjoy this movie, but it just would have done so much better if it had connected with me on a personal level. Yeah. I guess that's all I can really say before we jump into talking more spoilers. I guess that's pretty much it.
It's good, but it's not great. Is that kind of where you're going at?
I don't even know if I can say that without watching it again. But is that bad? Should I know on the first watch through should I have a solid opinion?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Because I think I don't think you should have to rewatch a movie.
I think it can change, but I think generally, I think movies should be, understood on their first watch. I think that there are exceptions. I think the second time you watch The Sixth Sense can be really powerful, especially if you actually went into that movie not knowing about the big twist. Because the second time you get to see all the elements that make the twist make so much sense. And so in some ways I can see how like a second viewing could make a movie better, but you should be able to have like if you watch this movie twice and you say, you know what, watched it again, it's great, perfect. But you should be able to say,
I still have
good,
an
not great right now.
opinion from watching it. Yeah, it's almost weird because sometimes I don't like saying, is it good, bad, great, awesome, whatever. Just like you almost don't like to put numbers on things
because it's hard.
Because I almost think that numbers in this situation are almost better because. Not that you have limited words, but words feel more limited. Because if I'm like, I got what? Bad, good, great, amazing, awesome. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what do they mean? As far as like, I could say it's great, but I would have to say like, it's a soft great. Because I think I think it might be better than good because it allowed me to do a lot of research on it and appreciate it even more as I was researching it. And there are certain visuals that stuck with me and making me really want to go watch it again. So I think that deserves a great, but maybe a soft great.
Sure. Yeah, I can feel that. Unfortunately, especially...
But like Inception, amazing. Yeah. And I'm not saying this is amazing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's just unfortunate because with the comparison with Inception, and it just feels so natural, being Christopher Nolan, and so similar in the way that it's kind of presented, it just doesn't have the same feeling.
And you always have to, it's not that you have to, but it's a good way to talk about movies is to say, well, let's compare this to a movie that does something similar but does it better or does it right. That it's just a physical representation of how it could have been better. So it's not directly comparing it, saying it has to be as good or anything like that, but it's just saying that this movie is done in such a similar way, but here's an example of how it was done better and what you could have done. So if anybody asks, well, how can it be done better? Well, watch that movie.
And I think John David Washington, Denzel's son, I think he does a good job, but he's not. I don't think he's great for this, or I don't know if it was him or if it wasn't enough to work with. I just didn't quite buy him in this role maybe as much as I should. I don't know why. Yeah.
So yes, I give this movie a soft grade. I think some people might call it amazing, and I can appreciate if that is what, like, for example, New Mutants. I always agree. Have your own opinion. If you enjoyed it, good on you.
Yeah.
But if you think it's amazing or awesome, I can't comprehend or understand. Regardless, cool. Yeah. But I don't know if I can have. I mean, I'll have a conversation with you about it, but it's going to be a very hard conversation. As in, like, I cannot relate in any way.
Yeah.
If you said this movie's amazing, okay, cool. Like that, I can get behind. Whether I agree with it or not is kind of what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, I think I either way still have questions for if either person said it. I have way more questions with New Mutants,
right, and
way more to prove. But with this one, I'd still be like, well, like, I guess what I mean. If you just don't really care about people, like, I don't know.
If you don't care about people.
Yeah, because, it's kind of weird that, like, all the side characters in this just kind of, like, show up and feel, like, Robert Pattinson in this movie feels a little out of place. He just kind of shows up. He's, I guess he's an informant, and he, like, in their kind of in the early part, he just kind of is like, hey, I'm working with you now, and he's like, cool. And then he's just around the rest of the movie kind of a thing. It's like.
You missed a big part of this movie then, probably. Maybe.
What?
So, all right, so this movie. This is a very solid go watch it because I think you will find entertainment out of this movie. This is not a movie.
Yeah, this is not a bad movie,
especially in theaters.
Yeah, this is still an above averagely made movie. I mean, Christopher Nolan still knows what he's doing. He's putting things together. I just, it's not gonna. I personally don't think it's probably gonna go down in the history of one of his better ones. It's probably gonna be on the lower end.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he made Tenet.
Okay, now I'm trying to remember some of the stuff you brought up when you were first going through this that I said I had to address. So, you were saying the time travel
gimmicky stuff.
But I cut you off about. We're going to spoilers now, folks.
Yep.
What you were talking about his character, Robert Pattinson's character.
Yeah, him, but also the protagonist was trying to figure out what, like, if I'm trying to solidly define what his arc is. I mean, he goes through this stuff with the woman, right?
Well, you were saying what is Robert Pattinson's, like, kind of purpose, reason for being there?
No, I know why he's supposed to be there. I mean, he helps out and he has, like, a purpose. He's like the same person as, I guess, Joseph Gordon-Levitt was in Inception to an extent, but he just, like, kind of pops in.
Right. So
it doesn't feel like there's any like a team forming kind of a thing. You know what I mean? It's just like people show up and they're helping each other out, sure, but like not like chemistry between characters.
Let me explain this. Agreed. Mm-hmm. The chemistry wasn't amazing, and it felt like they could have benefited from a better way of a team forming.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason, I don't know if you missed this, or this might not fully answer your question because I'm not saying this fixes it and makes it amazing, but at the end of the movie, when he was like, I never found out who recruited you, and he was like, you did.
Yeah, because the protagonist started the whole thing from the from
the future. Basically, that guy, Robert Pattinson's character, is from the future.
Yeah.
And later down the line, he recruits him, and then Robert Pattinson's character goes back into the past and meets him and talks with him. So that's why he knows, like, when they were sitting down having that conversation the first time they met, and he knew that he didn't drink on the job and knew all this stuff about him kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's why. And so I think what you're saying is it didn't feel, that is why it didn't feel as organic, but I think it would have benefited from it feeling more organic, or at least, here's the issue I have, is that the protagonist, I felt like, didn't have proper reactions at certain points. Like, for example, in that moment, didn't feel super organic because he didn't feel like he was super taken aback as to why this guy knew a lot about him. Another core example that I have of that is when he first figured out about time inversion, he didn't seem that blown away.
I know.
And I'm like, yo, things are moving backwards, my dude.
And there's even one point where one of the scientist lady or whoever is explaining it to him, she says, like, the words that, like, she says, like, trying to think about it too much. And I was like, is that towards me? Because I can't stop thinking about this.
And she was like, you're not shooting the bullet, you're catching it. And he's like, whoa. That's it?
Yeah.
And it was very monotone, like, wow, kind of like. And it didn't. I don't know if I've ever seen a movie with, what's his name? Washington's son?
John David Washington, yes.
I don't know if I've ever seen a movie with him. And
I've seen him in a show. I like he was
and I'm not
in
saying
Ballers.
I'm not saying he's not a good actor, but I was not blown away by his performance.
Very just steady. You know what I mean? He was there. He wasn't bad, but especially with the natural comparison being him against Leonardo DiCaprio, and I love Leonardo DiCaprio. I've seen like basically everything he's ever been in. He's very, very good.
Yeah.
And so that having that expectation put up against you, it's tough. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't even think you necessarily have to, in that way, you don't have to compare it to Inception. Like, he doesn't have to be, exactly like Leonardo. And I'm not saying you're saying exactly like him, but, like, I'm just saying a good, I'm not saying he's a bad actor, but, like, a good actor who is giving a believable performance in the situation presented, and I just didn't believe some of his reactions. And I don't know if they're going for the vibe of, since it was like a James Bond-ish kind of, he's a CIA, nothing really super surprises him kind of thing.
Cool and collected. That kind of thing.
But like, I get that, but that's just removing one more element that's humanizing this movie even less. And if you do that multiple times, then you're just left with nothing to humanize
it's just, man, there's no, and especially if he's going for like a Bond, like Daniel Craig, like James Bond type thing, I didn't get that, man. He doesn't come off that like, badass and cool. Like he does, cool stuff in the movie, like there's fights and stuff like that, but it's just something's missing about it. It's hard to quantify. I just don't feel like he's like a Daniel Craig badass. Or
and I haven't seen a lot of James Bond movies. But as far as like secret mission kind of stuff, I would relate more to Mission Impossible. So it's still same type.
Yeah.
So if you're going for that type of movie, I get in the plot that they're going for that. But when you have like Tom Cruise, and he has personal connections with his team, and you can see his reactions, and when things go bad or something new happens, you kind of feel it, at least from the movies I've seen. That's what I'm getting.
Right.
I never really, like, for example, Mission Impossible 2. Do you remember how, like, not good that movie was, where there's that random girl, and all I know is it was bad, but I don't remember it being bad because we didn't see human reactions. It was just, like, over the top and crazy and weird, but it wasn't because I didn't necessarily feel for the people.
Yeah.
So like they still didn't lose that part. And this just feels like, it's just, this movie just feels more monotone. And it, in my opinion, hurts it.
The stakes.
Yeah, for sure. I guess that is something that helps it. Okay, but another thing, and I think these are the main two things that I have. Issues that I have. And then I'll move on to positives or answering our questions as to what kind of was going on, which is I didn't know what was going on.
Right.
And no, really, I felt like there was way too much talking exposition in this movie.
And they didn't properly show it. So if you weren't like lightning fast on hearing and comprehending exactly like some of their plans were, you were like, well, wait, why did they do it that way again?
Dude, I'm probably gonna make myself look like a big idiot right here. Big dum-dum. Like I can't follow a movie, but I hope you would know me that's not me. Like one of my favorite movies is Inception, right?
I'm just kidding.
So when we got to the last battle scene and to what they were in that the whatever, the ruined city or whatever, and I was like, I have zero idea why they're here. I know they were trying to go for the thing. All I knew was that at this point I was like, there's a thing that the guy
tied to the bad guy, which his name was like Sator or something like that. Yeah. He was tied to that city because that was like his upbringing, something to do with that abandoned
so you don't
Russian
know either.
City. Dude.
Here's my point is there were so many points in this movie that were like talking exposition, and it just went by so quick. And I understand like the heist kind of vibe, like aspect of this movie,
right,
where you have a lot of that, where it's like, oh, guys talking to this guy, getting information, like, oh, but this, whatever, we're finding out more info, whatever. But there was so much of that, and it was so either quick or they because they went all over the world. There were so many different people with different accents that was hard to understand in a fast pace. Was that just me? And maybe I'm the only one.
Low, like kind of low volume.
Yeah. That's how I felt, and I just felt so lost.
Like watching this unpirated, I was constantly like upping and lowering because like obviously the big action scene would be loud as shit, and then as soon as people started talking, I swear they were whispering.
I got like it felt like, and this is gonna feel like I'm really bringing down the movie because of this, but man, if they fix that and the other like humanizing, this movie would be so good in my opinion. Because I don't have as much of like a reservation as far as why, like, was it necessary for the time travel? I think I can give you good reasons beyond for that, but we'll touch that next. This it almost okay. Here's a good example. When I was in high school,
all right,
I took AP Stats. You sat up. You ready for the story? I took AP Stats.
Wow,
and I fell asleep in that class a lot. But the first time you fall asleep in that class, first time, you kind of understand what's going on. It's a little confusing because of stats. Fell asleep. I wake up 45 minutes later.
Nice.
Teacher's still talking. No idea what she's talking about because I fell asleep.
Right.
So I go, well, okay, sleep. Next day I come in like, cool, let's get caught up because I was a tired boy yesterday. Stats builds on everything you learn. It builds on, like, you don't really ever move to the next thing like other math classes that I'd been in.
Right.
Everything builds on its prior self. So the next day I am so lost. I have no idea what's going on. So I go to sleep because I'm literally like hurting, and it was a cycle, and that's why I did so bad in that class.
Nice.
Was because it started this cycle where I was like, I already don't know what's going on, and all I'm doing is hurting my brain trying to figure it out, but I won't understand what's going on because I didn't know, I didn't learn what we were supposed to learn yesterday. So no matter, even if I listen intently, I will have no clue what's happening. So I might as well go back to sleep. and then the next day, it was the same thing. Cycle.
Digging a hole.
That's what part of this movie felt like for me.
Constantly building on itself.
Exposition. And so the more that they talked, I would just like not drift, like daydream.
Yep.
Like, well, I guess I'm just doing something else in my head. But I would just find myself almost not listening to what they were saying because I already felt so lost in certain places. Now, so I kind of had to take this movie in pieces when I watched in pieces when I watched it. Like each, obviously there was the overall arcing plot, which I understood they had to stop this guy because he was kind of trying to invert the time of the world. But exactly how he was trying to do that, I was kind of fuzzy on it. I was kind of lost.
Well, I mean, are you talking about, when you say exactly how, are you talking about like the science of it?
No. Like how when you're piecing everything, like he has to do this, and they have to go and grab this and then do this because, and then they threw a little bit of science in there, but like the basic science, not like it has to make sense in our real world, but making sense in the movie and how this is making everything work.
Right, yeah.
So piecing all that together, I understand the basics of the plot, but as far as how they're doing it and why they were in certain places, didn't fully grasp. So I had to take it in pieces, like when they went to when they crashed the airplane into the hangar and had to get the painting out. That was a little earlier in the movie, so I was still more on track.
Yeah.
But for example, that is a piece. I know that's what they're trying, regardless of why they're trying to do it. I have to go, okay, enjoy this moment that they're going in, and probably going to be a cool action scene of them crashing a plane. And I know their goal is to get this painting out, even if I don't necessarily fully understand, like, the why or what it's going to do.
Was a fake that the woman who was married to Sator,
evil dude,
and Sator was keeping her from seeing his son. Her lover did a forgery of that painting, and they needed to get that painting to get to her to get to Sator. Feels very like,
but again,
and shit. Like
regardless of whether I understood, I'm just giving an example of how I had to take it in pieces. The same thing with the end battle. It was like, okay, they have this battle and they have to go in and get this thing in the time on their watches. Enjoy this. Enjoy that. Like, which that bothered me because I just for some reason they did some really cool stuff, and so it didn't bother me enough to like hate the movie, but I just felt like there was over exposition and talking in ways that made you like, you got it, cool, because we're going, and I'm like, oh wait.
Yeah, when I was watching, especially that scene in particular, I was just kind of thinking in my head, like, is this really necessary? You know what I mean? They're going through a lot of red tape, like a lot of shit to get this painting for this woman, just so that they can get to him.
Yeah, let's talk about the painting.
Is there not a better way to? I don't know if there is, but it feels like there's a better way to do this than crashing a plane to get into a hangar that's sealed off so you can get a painting for a woman so that she can get to her son, so that they can help her. It's like, wow,
let me
just go to the guy.
Can we break it down?
Yeah.
Not why or not how to get the painting, but kind of why. Because for some reason I didn't fully follow that either. What I know is they had to get the painting, and they're either trying to have it go missing for the guy or just destroy it. Didn't really matter as long as he didn't have it.
Right.
To not have control over her. Why did the painting have control over her?
don't know, because I thought it had to do with like they had to get the painting so that she could see her son because he had her son.
But why? What does the
wasn't
painting have to
really.
do
I
with
mean,
it?
we saw her with her son.
What does
earlier
the
in
painting
movie.
have to do
I
with
don't know. That's what I'm saying. It's like I've been trying to like look at like the the plot thing, and maybe we
Because
are just being
it was-
fucking stupid.
It was a fake,
but
somehow him having it gave him millions of dollars, which means he didn't.
that's
sell
not how he
it.
got rich. He got rich from all the gold from the city.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
So like it didn't have anything to do with that.
All right, guys. This episode, you might hear a bit more silence than others because we are going to look things up because we're going to delve into this movie with you guys. What does the painting have to do? What is this movie with Tenet?
An art appraiser who sold Sater a drawing by Francisco Goyo that was forged by her former lover, Lawrence. Kat tells the protagonist that Sater is blackmailing her with the drawing to keep her from their son. How?
Whoa, it's a
But
painting.
what do you mean blackmail? Are they saying that she's going to tell the world it's a fake and get her in trouble that way? Is that the idea? I don't remember that conversation ever happening.
Dude, I don't know.
If they explain how she's being blackmailed, it was like in one very quick sentence.
And again, I just couldn't understand some of like the thick accents because I'm not from those places.
Yeah.
So I just
If I was watching this movie, like if I had rented it and was watching it at home, not in a
totally subtitles.
Subtitles.
Oh
for sure.
my gosh,
Yeah.
that would have made this movie so much
Yeah.
better. And I don't. That's actually something I want to talk about weeks and weeks and weeks ago because I started watching some movies with subtitles, and I keep forgetting to bring it up on the podcast. Some people like subtitles and some don't. And
I normally
think,
don't
and
because it
I normally
distracts
don't-
me from watching what's actually going on. Looking
I
at
agree,
faces
and I
picking up
think
other stuff.
that even though there are some movies I enjoy watching subtitles with, I think if I had a stance on it, if you have to have subtitles on or feel like you want to or feel like it makes it better, I feel like that's a negative point of the movie.
Interesting. Well,
Would you agree?
I don't know because
Unless this is completely disregarding if there's
Yeah.
someone hard of hearing and they can't hear, so they need subtitles.
yeah, sure.
Um,
But at the same time, I mean, you know what I mean? Because if I'm watching an English movie or a TV show and they've got like thick English accents, I'm putting on subtitles. Should the movie or show not have thick English accents? Because I mean, it's an English show made by English
That's
people.
true.
Or anything else. Like if I was gonna watch, trying to think of some other foreign even a foreign film like Parasite or whatever. Like I mean, I usually am more for watch the original. I'm much more for watch the original version if it's another language over watching a dubbed version. Just because
Right, well,
dubs
yeah.
distract
Yeah.
the hell out of me personally. Just the sync being off.
Yeah.
It's just too weird for me.
Yeah.
So unless they did an English, there's no real way to do that. But my point is that I don't think subtitles inherently bring away from the negative, like the need for some people to have, because that's really on the individual. There's probably plenty of people that maybe someone who's from, I don't know, England or something like that and isn't as used to American accents. I don't really know if that exists, but maybe they'd have to watch something like Fast and Furious with subtitles because
there's English.
Understanding Vin Diesel might be too hard.
You might be right, and
So
maybe,
it's really on the individual, I feel like.
well, it depends on the reason the subtitles are there, but it's very clear if like the audio is just not up to par and you can't hear things and you use subtitles, that is negative on the movie.
But
if
was
it
that
has
on
to
how
do
it
with
was made or how it's
accents-
presented? Because theaters do audio. I mean that's on.
Oh yeah, it depends.
Yeah, so it's really hard to pin it against the
Well,
movie.
I was watching a Netflix movie, and I think that was how it's made because it's made to be shown on Netflix.
Yeah.
And the audio was all over the place, like the loud action scenes and stuff. Very loud. Had to turn it down. But when I turned it down, it didn't make the other stuff sound low, except for certain talking points. Like you hear something, and then it's like, I can't hear a single thing you're saying.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
bad.
stuff like that can definitely be on the I guess the filmmakers or whatever, that they just didn't, or whoever's sound mixers or editors or whoever is really responsible for getting that down, because that is a little bit of a pet peeve for me if I don't feel like I can keep a constant volume on. You know what I mean?
Right.
If I have to feel like I'm constantly turning it up and down, because that does pull you out. But
I'm while you're talking, I've been trying to find the meaning of this painting because I hate that we like.
I do think that what we'll end up doing is we will, talk about it mainly on this, and then we'll probably have some follow-up on another episode when we end up seeing this again, because, like I've said, unfortunately, I just didn't get to see this in the best way.
All right. I can't find it, so I guess we can move on.
Yeah.
All right. So the painting. So again, I guess that those were the two main issues that I had. That the exposition and not being able to follow more than I think any movie I've ever seen before. Like the not being able to follow. But yeah, I would say so. That I can remember.
And I think a big part of that, at least for me, has to go into if I don't really care about the characters and they're not making me, if I don't care about like if they live or die and the chemistry within themselves, I'm not enjoying just seeing them on screen. I can enjoy what they're doing and like you know some of the set pieces and action and that kind of stuff, but themselves I'm not emotionally invested. Therefore, when they're just talking to each other, I'm not really as into it as maybe I should be. You know what I mean?
I feel like we both almost died on this podcast.
Yeah, really.
Agreed.
So the other big thing, I don't know if you wanted to address it, was, damn, dude. If you got Rona, I think you legally have to tell me. The other thing was the time inversion being kind of gimmicky. If you can kind of...
As to why they had to kind of do it?
Yes. As far as main plot stuff goes, like it being used to destroy the world, cool. It being used to like fire guns backwards and like do action back, you know what I mean? Because to me it feels like they should have used it as kind of like a reset, like, oh, I fucked up, or like, oh, I died, let me reset, and I can go back and then, okay, now I know what the guy's gonna do, and then I can, you know what I mean? So like, say we're in a gunfight and I'm like, bang, 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 I shoot, you know, and I'm shooting you, and then I get shot, and then I'm like, hit a, you know, this is a very simplistic version. Hit a button, we reset the last, there's a Nicolas Cage movie that did this, but reset the last 10 seconds, and now I know where and how you're going to shoot or punch me or whatever, and that's how it could be used in a fight to an advantage. In this, it's more of like, they're just doing things in reverse in a fight, but it doesn't seem to be all that tactfully important. You know what I mean? Why does that help you in a fight for your gun to be catching bullets opposed to shooting them out?
Right. So this obviously, I know I'm not saying you said this, but you obviously can't just go back and reset the next 10 seconds.
No. It's not what the movie can't. I'm just saying, yeah.
No,
yeah.
I know. But you go through this, you know, the inversion chamber, whatever, which is the technology that allows things to then move backwards through time. Once you do that, then obviously you still have another version of yourself that was going forwards that then starts, you know, moving backwards or whatever, and you appear to be moving forward because everything around you. So you have multiple versions, that other version of yourself going on. So
I know like Tenet, the like I guess organization or whatever you want to call it, is like, you know, sending people back to save other people that's like gone on and stuff like that. And so I understand how that's useful, but just literally in a gunfight for things to be moving backwards, I don't understand how that's helpful.
Yes, but when did that ever happen?
So when he's fighting, when he's fighting in one of the first scenes in the airplane scene, they're in the thing and they're fighting the two black masked, you know, suit up inversion guys.
Which was himself.
Yes, I know. Yeah, but I'm saying, you know, so he's shooting. He sees all the bullet holes that are already there, and like they, you know, kind of use that. But I don't understand why in like a scene like that, why it's important for bullets to go backwards or for him to like fly up and like. How does that help him?
It didn't. So okay. That's what I loved about this.
Is it just a unfortunate circumstance?
Yeah, because
they're purposely making bullets that move backwards.
No. Okay. So in this situation, let's take the airport situation or whatever. He's moving backwards. The rest of the world is moving forwards, but it appears that everything else is moving backwards too. Yeah. Right. So everything is moving backwards. He's moving forwards. So in the first part of this movie, where we see him fighting the masked, all black guy, which is himself. Right. It appears that he's moving backwards, and all that kind of stuff. But to him, when he's at the when he's back in his when he gets back to that scene and he is the guy who's all in black, he's fighting himself. So he's just fighting in regular like time, like his time. He's fighting a guy who is moving backwards. They're always just fighting guys that are moving backwards, but when they're doing it, they're moving forwards. It's not like moving backwards is helping him. It's just that it pulls off a weird visual thing. Like, so when he's first fighting himself in the first scene, when he sees the guy like do a flip onto the wall, which looks like he's doing a flip off the wall to like tackle him down, is basically what he does when he has to fight himself. He kicks off the wall and pulls him to the ground. But when you see it the first time, it happens in reverse. It's not that it's helping him in reverse. It said that's what he had to do while moving forward when he was moving backwards to actually get away from the guy. He was using regular tactics in forward motion, but it looks crazy when you see it before.
Right.
So I don't understand what your issue is there.
So my thing is that they show that like bullets and specific equipment can be inverted.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So if I'm inverted myself, like if I'm going backwards, my whole thing to help stop all this nuttiness, is all my stuff automatically inverted because I am?
So
because it seems like it's different because John and the protagonist going forward in time can fire and can do the inversion with special bullets, but if you are inverted and you have normal bullets, can they not work the other? You see what I'm saying?
So here's the way that I think this is kind of how this kind of works is the people from the future are sending the guy the technology that is things that are inverted, showing that like objects can be inverted and stuff like that, right? So if an object is inverted, you have to interact with it while going forward, but it's moving backwards.
Yeah.
But if you yourself go through the inversion, anything you touch can move backwards because you are now interacting with it.
Well,
You know what I'm
anything
saying?
you touch.
Like as in like the gun. So like if I take a gun and fire it while I'm going backwards.
Well, then why, if he's touching people, shouldn't they start going backwards? Shouldn't everything he touches start going backwards?
No, it's not like you convert them. It's not like touch and you get converted. It's like if it's an inanimate object, you interact with it just like normal because it's not moving on its own.
Yeah.
So you can interact with it like normal, and it'll appear that it's being inverted. But that's the benefit of having a person be inverted, is they can interact with objects as they're being inverted.
If you're still operating, like if you're doing everything inverted, why would you interacting with things cause them to be inverted? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it does. Because what do you mean?
Well, because how would like in fact. How are those bullet holes even there from the airplane scene before he even starts interacting with it? Because I mean, he still has to.
Because he shot through it, then ran into the other time inversion like turntable thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to him, when he walked in, he already shot those bullets and ran in, but he's got to play it in reverse. So he comes out, and that's why the bullet holes are there. And that's why they were saying, I think in the beginning of the movie, that if you get a bullet coming through you backwards inverted, good luck. Like almost that it's worse, right? You remember that?
Yeah, I remember them saying that line. I don't know why, though.
That reasoning I put together later was because if that's the case, it's destined to happen. It's already happened. It just hasn't happened yet. You've been shot.
Gotcha.
And it's like, good luck. If it's going reverse through you, you're not escaping it. Like, that is it. You're going to get shot. There's
That's
kind of
weird because isn't the whole point of doing the inversion is that they're trying to stop what's already happened? They're trying to reverse destiny?
So right. So I guess to the point of why it's kind of happening and why it's necessary is apparently there's people in the future that have created some kind of technology to invert things or people or reverse the flow of time on things, right?
Yep.
And they've gotten it to a point where they can basically invert everything at once, like all of time can basically just move backwards.
Yep.
And that the world got into so much chaos and I don't know, nuclear war, whatever, it doesn't really say exactly what, that the only way to save it is to go backwards. But one of the scientists who helped make it realized how dangerous that is.
Yep.
And so dispersed all 9 pieces, send them back in time and hid them in different places.
Right.
And now the people that want to use it to reverse the time of the world, because it might save their world, but then end ours kind of thing, or could just completely blow up. It's way too risky, way too dangerous kind of thing, and is going to basically destroy our world as we know it. They are trying to get the guy to do it to hopefully save the future world. So the reason that he uses it is because it helps him understand what's going to happen in certain events.
Right.
Like when they were getting away with the plutonium and stuff like that, and they were going through that car chase, he knew where he was going to be and what was going to happen, and that's why he goes back in time to basically help that whole situation because he knows it's going to happen.
Right. So are they, in the time travel in this, are they playing with the single time thing and they can go back in time and alter the future, or are they doing the branching timelines where if since they're inverting, are they making a new timeline, or is it going to alter their future timeline?
That is something that is one of those things that when I looked it up, we don't 100% know. And I usually don't like this. I usually don't like this.
Yeah.
But I actually like certain parts of not knowing. And I like certain parts of the confusion. Usually it just makes the movie more of a mess, but for some reason the way they did it, I like it. And I'd like to break down why, but
okay.
I know you got a question.
So, well, because I guess my point is that if you're if you can go back, we've kind of established through, figuring out time travel movies that going back to alter your own future doesn't really work because
right.
The only logical way for it to work is if you branch off and make a new timeline. But if you do that, then what's kind of the point of doing it? I guess because if you're still going to fuck over your future, like that, your timeline is still fucked. So, I mean, I guess you can break a new one.
I don't think this is not this. I don't think the question of this movie is making a new timeline. I think it's, can you actually change your future, or is everything just destined to happen?
Mm-hmm.
It's all one timeline, but can you go back and change it, like Back to the Future type stuff,
right.
or is it all just destined to happen and nothing actually is going to change? And I think it's more of that. Okay, so the reason that I like this is because when they talk about how when they first go back in time and they're inverted, they're going backwards. First of all, I think it's really cool that they're doing it in a new way of, you can't just pick a time, magically go back to it.
Sure, it's not a time machine. Yeah.
It's not a time machine. It's literally just moving a different direction in time.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think is, what really just makes me think is, obviously the new way that they're perceiving this. He talks about how when he first went back in time and got in that car accident, which he sees when he's on the way to the place or whatever, and that car like wrecks in reverse. That was him kind of thing. And then after that, they're like in this ambulance. They're heading back to the airport, and they have it's the main two characters, Robert Pattinson, Washington, and they're talking. And he was like, so if we're there, or if we're already here, does that mean that it never actually happened? Basically asking the question of, like, if you're here, how does that make sense that it happened? Like the paradox. Right. He's like, that's the grandfather paradox. And he's like, well, is that real? And Robert Pattinson's character says, it doesn't matter. That's what they believe. And we basically just have to continue moving on as if that's like what's going to happen is destined to happen. And I know some people think that's a cop-out, but the way that they did it in this movie, because they described, he's like, that's why you didn't die in the car accident kind of thing, was... okay, part of this is a little fuzzy because I'm trying to piece together certain parts that didn't fully make sense. But basically they say that he was part of a timeline that was going backwards, but most of the timeline is going forwards.
Mm-hmm.
And that if we basically, like, there's not a right and wrong way of time to move. It's just moving in one direction. And that if over 50% if over 50% of the time is moving in one direction, it's perceived as wrong. So if they took half of the world's objects or people or half of the earth and reversed the time 65% and we were going the other way, we just as humans categorize time in numbers and dates and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It would be the same. We just wouldn't notice. If more than 50% was reversed the other way, then moving forwards would be backwards. So it's like there's not a forwards and backwards. It's just moving in directions of time, which then makes me think about the conversation where we had time being the fourth dimension and how, I had it in a note here. Basically how we were talking about the fourth dimension and how different, if there was a fourth dimensional being, they wouldn't see time in a linear fashion. And this kind of like furthers my point of like, there's not a right or wrong way of time. This is just how we perceive it. And if it was switched around, it's not like it's changing physics. Physics are physics. Physics aren't time.
Well, yeah, but okay, let's just use really simple reasonings to how this breaks down. When you get inverted, because I honestly don't know, do you keep going? Like, if you were to be inverted for years and years and years, would you eventually become a kid and then a baby, and then would you basically Benjamin Button? Would you reverse age and die because you go back into the womb?
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff. It makes you want.
Well, you wouldn't go back into the womb because you're still in control of where you go.
Right,
just
sure.
Because you reverse time doesn't mean
you get what I'm saying. Like
you're not in control.
But eventually, would you just be moving backwards through time, but keep aging forwards?
Right.
I don't understand how that.
I would think you would. Again, that's a whole different topic. This movie didn't address because it doesn't take place in that kind of time. I don't think we're supposed to ask that question, but I like that it gets deep enough to where we can ask that question. I would think that, again, that's not time. That's just your body progressing.
Right.
In a forward direction. For you, as in like a person, you're progressing what you consider as forwards. But as far as how time is moving around
already allows you to break rules of physics and stuff like
No,
that?
it doesn't.
People flying around and shit.
No, it doesn't. It's not actually breaking physics. When you're moving in reverse, the physics work basically the same for you. It's just because everything else is moving reverse that it affects you. So if 60% of things were moved in reverse, then we would perceive that as it would look like 40% went backwards for us here. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't. I don't. This highlights my ignorance on this. When you start talking about, I feel like kind of high level physics and science, because I can't tell you why, but this feels like it doesn't make any fucking sense.
So, example, like a bird flying forwards, right?
Yeah.
It's reacting with the air, and it's reacting like the way that it flies forwards makes sense, looks like it makes sense. But when he's inverted, he walks aside, sees a bird's flying backwards. Seems to break physics, but it's really just because it's moving backwards. But if you took the bird and like the air, those two things or whatever, and inverted and made them go the other direction, again, the physics are fine. It's just that it's moving another way. It's not time and physics they separate time and physics in this.
Hard because I don't understand, because also intent has to do with things. So when they were first explaining it, when in order to pick up the bullet, make the bullet kind of go up to his hand, he has to kind of drop it.
That I don't understand.
So it's like, how does intent, but also predestined, and things are going to happen how they are, but also there has to be an intention there. So it seems paradoxical, because it seems like you can change your destiny, but also you can't. It feels like it's saying both at the same time. Right.
So I did write down in one of my notes that says inanimate objects is weird, because I would think that they're sending him back inanimate objects to show you can move things backwards, and to show that he can progress this technology or use this technology for more, and maybe you can find cool ways to use it, but it's more than that. Like you were saying, as long as what I believe, as long as a person's inverted, you can then interact with things, and they kind of become inverted because you're interacting with them, so they're following physics the correct way.
But I still don't, because look, if I'm inverted, I'm moving backwards, I pick up a gun. A normal gun.
Yeah.
Now, in order for me to catch a bullet with that gun must have already fired the bullet into somewhere wherever it is.
No.
How did that happen?
No, that's not how that. So again, you're catching a bullet if you're going forwards and the bullet's moving backwards.
Yes.
But if you're inverted and going in, then
but
you can use the gun
normal.
how you want.
How? So a bullet just magically appears somewhere and then it goes back into your gun later? Do you get what I'm saying? I picked up a normal gun. That means it fires normally. It has bullets in it, and they fire out. It's not ready to catch anything. It's fully loaded. It can't catch a bullet because it's fully loaded.
If you're inverted, you don't have to catch a bullet. Because no action has happened to that bullet.
But you're saying the bullets have already fired, but I've got a full gun.
No, the bullets have not already fired.
But the bullet holes are already there.
If you're looking at it from the other perspective. If you are not inverted, and the bullet holes are already there, it's because it's been used in that timeline. You're looking at it that's why I really like the scene. My favorite scene was that red and blue room.
Yeah.
Where they were showing one timeline moving backwards, one moving forwards. So in the red room, the bullet hole is already there, and you see that it's going to come through her basically. So he's going to shoot the wall.
Right.
Maybe her through it, but the wall is going to get shot because he's already done it.
Yeah.
So, but if you are him, if
you
you're
haven't
him,
done it
he
yet.
has to then shoot it. So it's if you're viewing it from a different perspective. Everything from your perspective is moving in a certain direction if it's an animate object. That's why it gets confusing.
I know. It's maybe I'm just... I think I'm starting to get what you're saying as far as the perspectives, and it's kind of like, they're just overlapping.
That's why I thought it was so cool when they were like, he's speaking... When they went into that room and they were going forwards, they were in the red room, and the blue room's going in reverse... And he was speaking, but it was in reverse. I'm like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden you see the bullet go through her. And then when you see his perspective, they shift to his. He's counting down before the guy even gives him an answer. So he knows he has to shoot her because he doesn't know what he's going to say.
Right.
Just to threaten him and hope he gets something out of it. That's why he didn't immediately kill her.
Okay.
Not because of what he said, that he he threatened her in advance because, well, I'll shoot her in the stomach. Hope he actually says something and gives me something good.
Yeah.
And then he has an earpiece that's telling him, I guess, what he's actually saying or something. Finds out that he does tell him something good. And then, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's super confusing. That's why I want to see it again. But I like I've never seen the time travel work reversely, which is why it seems so crazy.
Yeah, okay, and I'll give it to you. That does help it feel less gimmicky. That now that I'm kind of understanding really the proper way that it works, opposed to just actually kind of having it in reverse. Because I mean, when they were, I don't know, it's just.
That's why I think that's why at the beginning, or that's why in the airport scene where he's fighting himself and he's like dodging, like getting shot by bullets, kind of thing. Yeah. It seems like it's going in reverse, but to him, I think what he's trying to do is not kill his previous self, but like trying to empty the gun. So whenever he moves his head, he shoots. Yeah. So he can drop the gun, go in the time thing, because if his previous version walked in before he comes out of the thing, he can pick up the gun, which is full of bullets. Yeah. But if it's empty because he emptied it reversely, got nothing to shoot.
Okay, maybe there's just some big thing I missed, especially like.
But does it make a little more sense?
No, it does. I
can understand not fully following that when you have to watch a bad version of it. You're going in bad, with bad experiences, and just be like, I just got to get through this movie.
Like I said, I had a bad experience, and that's why this next question may have like a very obvious answer.
But that's when that hooked me. The red and blue room scene that solidified how it kind of works was like, this is so cool, and that's why I was like, this movie is still great, even though there's a lot of other stuff.
Right.
Continue.
Why don't they just tell the protagonist from the beginning everything?
Here's my biggest question: why tell him? Sure, he took. That's the thing I didn't want to say in the synopsis before was because maybe it gives a little bit away, I guess, but the main guy dying at the beginning wouldn't make sense anyways. Where he takes the suicide pill. Yeah. But it was really a test. Sure, I guess. Does everybody going through Tenet have to prove that kind of loyalty? Why is he such a main part?
Well, especially
like you don't know about the organization.
Like he's the creator in the future, and if you're the people who are moving, like they know they can they have some kind of form of communication with each other as far as like future and past and something like that. So like, why doesn't Robert Pattinson just be open about everything? Why does he keep it a secret? If they know the future, So why?
I don't know.
Well, because and that makes me, unless there's a better answer that we just missed, that makes me think they kept it as a secret just for the audience because the flow of the movie would drastically change if you revealed the entire plot at the beginning opposed to keeping all the stuff secret, especially about him.
Right. Here's what I like about why the paradox I actually enjoy is because they take the paradox, they embrace the paradox, and they say basically that everything happens is destined to happen kind of thing. So it's not like, well, if I was like the guy showing up, himself showing up and fighting himself, how can that happen if he hasn't actually got to that point yet? But then when they break down how the reverse time actually works and how it's like one thing's moving one way and one thing's moving another, it's not that it hasn't happened yet. It's just that they're moving in two different directions at the same time. Yeah. That's why, because it makes you think, it almost breaks your brain into like the fourth dimension of it's not about when it happens, it's that there's just two different flows happening, which I think is so cool because then it makes everything say whatever's going to happen is destined to happen, which some people, and you might agree with this, I'm not saying I don't agree with that at all, but that it lessens the stakes, but maybe it's because at the end of the movie when you piece things together, that's when you go, it didn't really matter. But then you go, well, it doesn't matter if it didn't matter what happened because it was going to destined to be okay anyways. Because in the movie, I was still worried about it because I hadn't pieced everything together. It's almost like things matter while you're watching it because you're supposed to piece it together after you watch it. Right. And then it wouldn't have as stakes if you were able to piece it together while you're watching it.
But contextually within the film, there's no reason why we should have to piece it together because they should have just told the protagonist from the get-go.
So maybe Robert Pattinson's character just wanted to have fun and toy with it. I don't know.
That's with the stakes of this film, that's a very bad excuse.
It doesn't matter. Because no matter what he does,
they run risks.
Robert Pattinson knows that no matter what he does, it's going to end up because Denzel Washington's Washington's character. Listen. No, you can't change. You can't change. That's what I'm saying. Everything's destined.
Why go back if you can't change the future?
Because he did go back. It's not why would you, it's he did, and he was destined to, or nothing of that would have happened.
But the initial timeline, them going back in reverse must be changing things for the future. There's no point in doing it otherwise.
No.
So you're saying that John David, the protagonist character, did all the exact same things he does in this movie before his self gets inverted and goes back and changes things for him. No, that can't be right. He can't fight with himself. He can't go through any of these things. He can't be exposed to Tenet before it exists. Obviously,
what are you saying?
Okay, the protagonist gets to the point in the future where
he starts the organization.
They start the organization, the technology is invented, and then they go back, right? So that initial timeline, even if it's the same one, different actions must have been taken. They must have done different things because they didn't have Tenet. They didn't know what they were doing. So
again, it didn't just like how he met his previous self. You're saying that then that just falls apart when you say that the guy who was when he was his later self in the movie, dressed in all black, fighting himself, should not have showed up because he wasn't there yet to go into the inversion to come back.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
That's my point. Is you can't look at this movie like that. You have to look at the movie as there are multiple timelines, not timelines, but there are two directions of time, and they're both moving backwards and forwards at the same time. Basically.
But that's the whole problem with this, and that's what. Not to bring up Avengers, but that's what Endgame is talking about when they talk about this. When Paul Rudd has the line, "So Back to the Future is a bunch of bullshit," because logically you cannot send someone from the future back to change the future. It's already happened. Therefore, the only way for time travel to make sense is for it to branch off into different timelines.
I completely understand what you're saying. Like, completely. But the way that I look at this movie is you have to look at it as which I know we physically can't, look at it as a fourth dimensional being saying, this is entirety. Like, I'm putting up my two hands because I can't see it. Like, this, in my grasp, is the entirety of everything. Like, timeline-wise, right? And there are two different timelines that are moving or there's two different, times, the same universe, like same timeline, but they're moving in two different directions simultaneously.
Yes, but
so it's
you
not
have to get to a certain point.
The point is
they
you don't
didn't
have to
start at the same time.
You don't have to end. That's the point. Is they kind of did. You don't have to start at one, get to the end, so you can then reverse back.
Yes, you do, because you have to invent the technology.
No.
So did the movie say that inversion has been happening since the beginning of time?
Again, it embraces
the
paradox.
End of time, I guess?
It embraces the paradox that if something is happening from somebody that's moving backwards in time, that it was destined to happen, and there's nothing you can do to change it. So, which really takes the stakes completely out of this movie, which is kind of maybe why we shouldn't have talked about it before we watched it again.
That's why I'm saying that what the fuck, because it doesn't make any goddamn sense, because you're either saying that you can't. These are two absolutes that cannot be mutually, they cannot work together. You can either have things be destined and that you can't change them, or you can change your future.
Right, and I already said that I believe it's that you can't change.
So then what the fuck was the point? There was no point in doing any of this.
Well, it's not that there wasn't a point of doing it. It was that he had to get through that entire thing to then go back and create it so it could be happening at the same time while he goes back. He knows that he is going to create Tenet before he knows he's going to create Tenet, because it has to happen for the events that he experienced to happen at the same exact time. It's just it's like time doesn't matter and everything's happening at once. Whoa.
But that doesn't make any sense. Because in order for you to start the time inversion, you have to invent the time inversion. And in order for that to happen, you have to reach a point in linear forward-moving time. And then you can start moving backwards. You can't. They don't start at the same time, because that doesn't make any goddamn sense. Unless the movie was saying that two flows of time have started at the beginning of time. The end of time was already established right from the beginning, and they've always been moving against each other. They just figured it out along the way, which also doesn't make any fucking sense. Because why? What?
Again, this... the inversion, like the inversion chamber that they create or whatever to invert things, is allowing you to access, in my opinion, is allowing you to access the flow of time backwards. It's not that it invents the flow of time backwards, which technically that's what they're saying. Like, yeah, they invented the technology to invert things, but the technology to invert things is really just passing it into the realm of moving things back. Things moving backwards.
I don't remember that being explicitly stated. I remember it being they invented a device that allowed things to move backwards.
Yeah, you still have to invent the device to allow that.
Yes, but they weren't saying, all right, look here, this is how we perceive time, and this is how time is also moving, because time is irrelevant to,
That's the most layman terms of showing people they invented this to invert things, which isn't wrong. It's not. That is what they did, but it's allowing them to enter the moving like allowing things to move backwards. Does that make sense?
But there's no reason for me to believe as an audience member that time is already moving backwards from the get-go. Why? What the fuck is the point of that?
It's not that time is necessarily moving backwards. It's just that there's directions of time, and there's not a right or a wrong way of time.
Well, if there's nothing moving backwards up until before they invent the technology, then there is a wrong way. But there's a way that doesn't exist, and there's a way that does, right?
But because you can see it before it actually happens, that's the whole thing. Is you can look at this as it doesn't make sense because they didn't get to the point to invent it. Mm-hmm. So the stuff that happened in that timeline shouldn't have happened yet. Like he shouldn't have run into his previous self because he hasn't gone back and created or into the timeline.
Yes.
Thing. That's the paradox. That's the whole point that they address in the movie.
You can't just say, "Oh, great, it's a paradox," and we're just gonna fucking glaze over it because we're just addressing it. Like you have to, if you're gonna have that in your movie and you want to have a grounded sci-fi thriller thing that tries to explain itself through, you gotta have a reason. How do you get over the paradox? You can't just say, "Yeah, that was the paradox." Crazy, right? No.
And I want to go back and watch the exact scene of where they talk about the paradox more because I missed a little bit of that. But I think the point is that it's not that you go back, you have to reach that point for it to have actually happened, which creates the paradox. It's that if you saw it happening in reverse, like meeting your own self in reverse,
mm-hmm.
then that happened moving backwards, and it has to move backwards if you invented the time to move backwards, which means it's already happening, and there's two flows of time. Doesn't really make sense. It's really hard to explain. I'm not 100% on, but it allows me to think about it in a different way than Back to the Future does, where it's like, well, that doesn't make sense that you can change it because you weren't there.
Yes.
It's
Back to the Future is a comedy and ridiculous. But they're approaching time from the same way. They're basically saying that you can go back in time to fix your future, which doesn't make any sense.
No, they're not saying that.
If they're not saying that, what the fuck is going on? Because what's the point? Where's the motivation? Why go back in time at all?
They have to do that. They do have to go back in time for something to happen.
To change their future.
But it doesn't, no, because the future was going to be that way anyways, because Destiny knew, like this is like this omniscient thing, not being, but omniscient thing of like knowing what's going to happen. Like things are destined to happen the way they're going to happen. So they have
going
to go
back in time doesn't make any sense.
No, it does because they had to do that. It was destined for them to go back in time for it to happen. There's no alternate version of it. Everything was going to happen how it was going to happen.
So then you can change your destiny. This is my problem. You have two absolutes.
No. I know what you're saying.
And you can change it.
No.
You can't have them both.
I know what you're saying. The omniscient destiny just knows what's going to happen. There's not an alternate.
Okay.
So them going back in time was their decision, but Destiny knew that's the decision they're going to make. They're going to go back in time.
Okay, you're basically just saying that there is no destiny. So because
it's almost saying that we are tricked into thinking we have free will. We have the free will, but Destiny already knows what decisions we're going to make. So there's not like an alternate. Like it's almost like the idea of why would you think about what you could do if you did something else? So go back. Oh, I wish I could have changed that because you'll never actually know. Because it didn't happen. And guess what? It was never going to happen because all the decisions you made were going to happen.
Yes, but it's very different when you start sending people back in time and start changing things in the past to alter your future.
But they didn't change things in the past. The past things happened because Destiny knew they were going to go back anyways, so it made them happen at the same time.
I don't know what this Destiny new thing is because just drop that because it's like, what does that even mean? Because whenever you start talking about time travel, Destiny... The idea of like things are going to happen the way that they happen, no matter you can't change
time travel completely different. Like it made me try to drop everything I knew about time travel and rethink it.
Right, but the core concept remains. At some point in the original, let's say before all the inverse shit started taking place, because that must have been an absolute. There must be a time because they have to invent it. There must be a timeline where there is no inverse, and then they hit a point in which
let's say there's
inverse.
a time that the people cannot go inverse.
Yes,
even if there's another timeline moving backwards, people have not entered it or something like that. Let's say that.
Yes,
okay.
Well, because if people invented it, there has to be a point before.
Continue.
Right. So once you hit that point, you must, in order for you to make the decision to send people back inversely, you must have a motivation for doing so. You can't just say, well, Destiny wants us to do all these random things for a purpose and things are just going to work out. What the fuck is that? No, that's not how people make decisions. Like there might be, for example, for me, it might be already set in stone from whatever you want to believe in of how my life is going to go out. Am I just going to cross my fingers and go, well, things will just happen for me how they're going to? I'm not going to try and do anything. No, you actively, you have a plan and you want to execute that plan because of that thing. Yes. So
but if you decided to not do anything, Destiny knew you were going to decide not to do anything.
Right. But same here. It's like they made the inverse technology for the express purpose of sending people back in order to change their future.
Right.
That's the problem. You can't do that.
Here's the thing is, even if you, like, let's say the guy, you run into yourself. Like the guy ran into himself when he was fighting with himself before the technology was invented. Because technically, that was before the technology was invented, that he ran into himself. That stuff is still going to happen. The way that they affect the things going reverse still happens. But then somebody invents the technology later, whether they know that that weird encounter they had with somebody was somebody reverse or not.
Right.
That still has an effect on the timeline going forwards, but they're still going to invent the technology. Doesn't mean they know about it, or they might know about it because they find some inverted technology, and then it's a loop. But the idea, at least for me, the way that I perceive this movie is that this loop is that time isn't like this one string of time going one direction and in one straight line. It's almost this loop or circle that are moving in two different directions. That's the best I can explain it. Otherwise, but I get where you're coming from. I'm not necessarily saying you're wrong. Like, I get it. It's just this movie, which is, again, why I like it. It allows me to attempt to drop everything I know about how time and the flow of time works and just perceive it completely different. And maybe that just completely breaks some people's minds because I'm not saying that I understand it. Like I'm some fourth dimension time omniscient being, and I'm like, I understand this. You wouldn't get it.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that that's the whole problem. It's not like Back to the Future where you go back and change things up, and then all of a sudden you go back and go into the future and everything's different and everything was better or worse or whatever. It just doesn't work that way because you can't alter your own history to change your own future. It just doesn't work logically. It's the whole paradox.
Well, nothing works logically when you talk about time travel. Regardless, even Back to the Future, there are things that don't work logically.
In theory, I think that there is some validity to the idea where you could go when you start traveling in time, you create a new. You're not actually traveling in time. You're creating a new You're entering a parallel universe in which you're at that time is happening in concurrent to when you're moving, and therefore you can change that universe's future.
The endgame version.
Yes.
I agree. That is the most logical. But my point
Weirdly enough, Avengers, which has magic crystals in it, should not be the logical of the two.
Makes it grounded. But my point is that even if the Tenet version isn't the way that makes the most logical sense, like even if there were a way to travel through time, which apparently like physicists and all this stuff were saying that if there was a way, Avengers seems like that is the most logical explanation of what would happen. So this might not be what actually happens, but it just, to me, it introduces a third way. It's you have things that can change. You can change the future if you go into your past. You have it creates multiple multiple dimensions or universes or whatever. And then you have this one, which is that everything is almost happening at once because Destiny. I don't want to get back into explaining exactly why I think that. Yeah, and this one is, I will agree that this one is the hardest one to break down, but it's done it for me. It's done it enough to where like I can definitely entertain that thought, even if I don't fully agree with it.
It's just, here's my thing, and I know I probably come off as a huge stickler about a lot of these things, where I don't need to know how inverse technology works as far as like the science behind it and all that kind of stuff. It's fine. What is the problem here with me is that I'm spending the entire movie trying to figure out what and how and why they're doing the time travel thing, and it's just so distracting for me. I'm just trying to because what's their point if they're like I've said before, if they're moving back to change the future? Is it a different universe that they're creating? They can't change the future. It's just that's my unfortunate circumstance. You
just have to somehow try to jump on the train of thought, which is a hard one because I still don't fully comprehend it, but that everything is kind of happening at once, but in one is just moving one direction and one is moving the other direction. That's the basic way I can explain it. But yeah, we'll have more thoughts about maybe how it actually works after we see it the second time.
Yeah.
I just hope explaining it like that doesn't ruin things, because really, if you really, really think about it, the stakes of this movie, once you figure that out, there are none. Because if
like
that is
any
the,
time
that is
travel
the case,
thing, because you can always just redo it, right?
well, no, because again, in this one you can't redo it. No matter what you do, if you go back again, if someone jumps back into an inverse thing and goes back, it's not going to change it. That character who would inverse was running around the world inverse sometime, moving backwards somewhere.
So
they impacted it's moving forward impacts the backwards world, and moving backwards impacts the forwards world at the same time. It's like it's all happening at once. Whether you're going to do it later in your timeline, your personal as a human being timeline,
that doesn't add up because okay, so our version of the protagonist is moving forward.
Yep.
He's going to eventually hit the point where they invent the Tenet, the whole system, right?
So
the inversion thing.
If he moves backwards,
so then they can just send his ass back, and then now there's a second.
But they didn't send him
protagonist
back, or we didn't see where he went when he was sent back because he
He
wasn't
hasn't
in the
gotten
scenes.
there yet.
But that's the point. Again, because he ran into himself earlier in the movie, if that were to happen, he would have if he was in the same area, he would have seen himself, right?
Yeah.
Because just like you said, the first time we watched this, he hadn't gone back yet when he met himself in the black mask.
Mm-hmm.
So if he did go back later in his life, it's happening at the same time.
But Black Mask Guy is currently going back while our protagonist is currently going forward, correct?
Right, but he had to, for his personal timeline as a human, he had to go through a couple weeks to get to that inversion place to move backwards to meet himself again.
Yeah.
But we saw him, even though it, quote, hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
We saw him fighting himself.
Right.
In the first scene. So the point is, if he goes back again later, like after this movie's over, we would have seen him in this movie, unless he went back to a place that he wasn't there. You know what I mean? And maybe because you're not supposed to be in contact with yourself. I think if you see it's yourself and realize it's yourself, your brain explodes. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? I don't know. That's reaching a whole other level.
I think that would, freak you out, but it's not like in Back to the Future where you would die or something.
Well,
like
they did say, like, don't run into yourself. Something about the atoms and something will. I'm like,
ugh,
what?
that
Okay,
seems dumb.
whatever. That's a whole other topic. But my point is, if he did go back later after this movie was over, we would have. If he went back close to where our characters were in this movie, we would have seen him. And maybe there's some weird stuff where we do see him and we don't realize it, like Easter eggs in this movie. Like, that's him when he's going back and setting things up, making sure himself, like, watching himself from afar. I don't know.
But again, it just seems odd that, we still have a protagonist that's moving forward in time. He's eventually going to get to the point where he is going to get the inversion tech is going to be invented. Why can't he just hop in and go back too? And then at that point, now he's in kind of a reverse time flow that's behind his other self in a reverse time flow. You see how stuff just doesn't start making sense to me.
You just
man.
haven't gotten to the point where, and we just have to try to do this. Now that I kind of understand how it works, I'm going to try as well, going to see it again. Have to try to figure out how to basically drop that. You have to get to this point for this to happen.
You want me to just... you're
have to
asking
try
me to drop that?
You have to forget how you think time works. Yes.
But you're not... the movie isn't, as far as I know, giving me an explanation as to what the other possibilities are. Because I get that you can have this reverse time flow thing, but you still have to get to that point in order to get there, and you're gonna... as long as you can go backwards, you can forever go forwards. Because you can always go back to the time before you didn't know about it, and there's always going to be a new person to do it to. Because there was the first time.
Again, this whole I lost completely what you were saying there. I'm not gonna lie.
If person A goes forward
and
then gets to the point where he can go backwards, he'll get in and he can go backwards. Then he's going to meet person A again, going backwards. At some point, they're going to if they decide to collide, then that person B can go just like person A did, get in the machine, and then boom, person C, because he's going backwards, he's going to run into person C. That's what I'm saying. It's like what you're saying.
Why are you running into each other?
Because you're saying that time is forever moving in a flow, like it's almost like looping itself, right?
Sort of. Why? I still understand how you're saying you have to meet people, though. Like,
no, I'm not saying you even have to meet, but I'm saying they're going backwards just like someone's going forwards. But since they're going backwards, that means that something has to be going forwards in order for them to be able to meet, because they can meet.
Yeah.
So the next person he's always meeting can always get back in that machine and send himself right back and meet the next guy.
Well, for
it's always the same looping forever thing.
When the main character, the protagonist, when he goes back, meets himself, fights himself, and then jumps into the inversion and then goes forward again, there's a second version of himself, because the original version of himself moving forward.
Right.
And then the other version of himself moving forward. So technically, the first time that we watched it through, there was that other version of himself moving forward. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we just didn't see him because he was like off making sure he didn't run into himself until he got to the date where he went into that time machine. That guy's stuck in that loop. That one guy is stuck in that loop.
Yeah.
That version of himself is
but
doing that
if
over
the
and
other
over.
protagonist that's not stuck in that loop, the one that's kind of this new one because it's been now he's changed.
Robert Pattinson?
What?
Robert Pattinson?
No, the protagonist.
Oh, the same guy.
Yeah, the same guy.
Just
But yeah, you're saying there's another version of them, which I don't know if that adds up because now you've created two people in the same timeline that are both moving forward. I don't know how that happened, but sure, whatever.
Well, example, which is another part I want to talk about this, the girl at the end. They're both moving forward. Her other version of herself and her old version of herself. At the beginning of the movie, she was talking about a lady who jumped off the ship of the yacht, and she was jealous of her. And he's like, why? He's like, I was jealous of her because of her freedom. She seems so free. That was herself.
Yes.
And they were both moving forward.
Yes. But I get what you're saying. But now we're in the situation where as long as if going back, you kind of almost create this new person now because you've gone backwards.
Once you get into the once you get into
the
forward
version,
again,
then since you have this new version that's now going forward, he can get into the version, go right back, keep doing it forever. Now you've got a million protagonists running around.
No, you don't, because once you get past that certain point, there's only one of you again. So when the protagonist gets to the point where, okay, let's follow this timeline a little bit, and then we got to jump to something else because I feel like we've been talking about how this works for so long.
It's just
so the protagonist gets into that red and blue room, goes back in time to try to save the lady.
Yep.
Gets inverted, goes backwards, in time, and then he's moving backwards in time, gets to the airport, fights himself, then hops into that inversion place in the airport, comes out and is moving forward with his other version that is also moving forward. You have two people moving forward. So then you have two timelines moving forward. The original one gets in that timeline and goes back again, but this guy keeps moving forward. So there is now still not, that guy is no longer in that equation. See what I'm saying?
What if he didn't?
Then he comes back.
What if he made the decision to get into the inversion?
Well, then if he did, then there's another one. Yes, you have to get in the
that's what I'm saying.
Every time you get in the inversion, there's another one.
If they always got back into the inversion and kept going back, that's how you get a bunch of people.
Okay, I thought you meant that there's always.
But I'm saying like it's almost like the machine's creating, or time has to be running a loop then, because if every time I can keep going back, that means that time forward and reverse time must be constantly flowing. You see what I'm saying? It's looping. Yep. So it's almost like time as soon as it began, time ended.
Okay.
And that way it's forever looping forward with itself.
Okay.
Which isn't how time works.
But that's how you perceive. But I'm liking what you're saying, which is you're starting to invent a new way time works. This movie just takes a theory and invents a new way that it works. A thing like time.
It's just so...
And that's why I think it's cool, because it's just allowing a new version of time travel I've never seen.
It's just, what a giant... Because it's such a weird thing, because it's such a giant suspension of disbelief I have to do. I have to try.
For me, it doesn't, because it's establishing. But the thing is, it takes time to establish this world, which makes it more confusing. When you have Thor, for example, you know what is possible and not possible in that world.
That's what I'm saying.
So that's why you
this
stick
is
to
a
it.
Grounded, sci-fi Bond-esque, Mission Impossible like thriller.
It's sci-fi, bro. It's hardcore
yes,
sci-fi.
but then also it's basically saying, while that's true, we're also reinventing everything you know about blank. And it's just like, wow.
But here's what's crazy is that in theory it could actually work like that. We just haven't got to the or our version of this world, not in the movie or whatever, is we haven't gone through the inversion, or no one goes through it in this world. I'm just saying, like, it's technically possible if time worked this way. It's more confusing because we don't understand it.
I guess there's no evidence of it, but I don't know. As far as we know,
I am very sure it doesn't work like that. I'm not saying it does. My point is, they invent this thing that in this world, that's how it works. And in theory, it could work in the world this way, but there is far from evidence that it does. That's all I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying, is that as far as we know, time doesn't really exist. It's just, like I said, how we perceive things, and it's really just distance of things, more or less. Speed and distance, right, is really all that time is. So the fact that why would there be a looping of it? Why would there be another version of us that hasn't gotten to what we're at? You know what I mean? Like,
in theory, again, no one, like, in this movie even, people only go back so far. Like, as long as somebody doesn't go back in time to a certain point, then no one has reached this point yet. Like, so let's say the inversion works in our world this way. But it doesn't get invented till year 3000, okay? But then people are going backwards in time, but the farthest someone ever goes back is like 2500. So we don't have evidence of it yet because no one cares to come back to this time yet.
Well, if they went back to the year 2500.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if it did work in our world, which obviously I don't think it does, but then maybe it's just we haven't seen it yet because no one cares to go this far back because this is not a fun time. 2020 is not a year someone would want to have to live. And if your body progresses, again, that's another cool part. If your body progresses normally, because let's say it's not linked to time, your body is growing. It's not necessarily how time works. You can't live 500 years to go back 500 years. Yeah. So no one's, depending on when the time is invented, you can only go back a certain amount of time.
I guess the thing is that it's just hard for me to through this movie, and I just don't feel like it really explain it in an interesting way. Because, like I said, like I wasn't invested enough in the characters to really pay full attention while they were talking, and I had other factors going on. So sorry, maybe that makes me a bad critic. I don't know.
No, well, I will say I couldn't follow along with some of the plot because of certain aspects I couldn't hear.
But at the same time, this is. The concept, if what we're saying is true, then the concept that they want you to swallow with this movie is big. And that's a big ask for your audiences to get you to a place where you can accept that's the reality of the situation.
Well, I think yes and no. There's always the grandfather paradox sort of thing, but people still make time travel movies. So this is...
And I'll still critique them if they do the paradox.
But that's fine.
Because we know about it.
Again, that's fine. You can critique them in that way. But my point is, as long as it is entertaining to the audience, he still does it in a visually pleasing way, and it kind of makes sense even if people go, well, it's a paradox, but there are certain people that choose to not think about it and do a 2-hour podcast about why it does or doesn't work. But they're entertained, they enjoy it, and they go, well, it doesn't really make sense if you think about it, but I don't really care to think about it that in depth. I enjoyed it. Then you have the people that think more about it. That's why I added in the intricate details that a lot of movies leave out that can sort of kind of make it make sense and leave us with things to piece together, even if we don't come to a solid conclusion. Like, I'm just saying that he gives us more than just like, this is maybe a bad example, but like Back to the Future. That gives you, it's very clear as to what's happening, but like, there's a lot of questions in Back to the Future that like, we just go, it doesn't matter. We understand what's supposed to be happening. So...
Well, okay, but Back to the Future,
he tries to give you more.
I get that that's the example, and I don't think they're really comparable because one's a comedy and one is trying to be a realistic sci-fi thriller. So I mean, there's different expectations with these two films, right?
But they don't have to give you all those pieces. This is a sci-fi thriller that's more thought-provoking, gives you more pieces to, if you are willing to try to suspend that disbelief of how time works and create a new version of how it works, gives you enough to at least entertain it. I don't think we can come to a solid conclusion of whether it fully works or not, and we might never be able to, but...
It just feels like the internal logic of the own movie seems off, especially when you start talking about whether or not you can or can't change or how any of it really actually works. And I think for a movie like this, that's important because, like I said, if my expectation going into Back to the Future is that I'm not looking for the science to work, I want it to entertain me from its goofy comedy aspect versus this, which is supposed to be, I'm supposed to be enthralled through because through the realism, through watching this, that it's, I'm supposed to be in this whole new world and believe that it's real, for the duration of watching it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then I can't be sitting there asking questions on how anything works within itself. I don't have to know how inversion works. I don't want the science or the math or any of that shit.
I understand what you're saying.
But yeah, I can't be sitting there and thinking, wait, if it does that, then how does it affect anything? How are they changing their own, all that we've just spent the last hour talking about? I'm just sitting there thinking about that opposed to what's happening in the movie.
And the only conclusion I can come to wrap that part up is saying, it did enough for me to not have to question as much because it gave me enough to think about while watching it that I didn't question that as much. I did after because I had more time to, but it was like, okay, I have enough. Like, okay, I understand this. Let's keep going kind of thing during the movie that I'm hoping that part of the reason you couldn't is because of the way you had to watch it. And maybe if you watch it again and pick up on more things, you will be given enough to not be questioning it through the movie.
Yeah, it very well could be true.
That's the only way I can wrap it up is watching it again. Maybe we'll fix that. I hope. I don't know. It did for me, at least in those parts. The one part that was interesting was at the end where they had two teams moving in two different directions for that last battle scene. The blue team has I was like, how did they get to do it an hour before, and that was because I guess we kind of answered this question, but that was because they were coming from like way in the future, and that's when I realized it. I was like, wait, if they even see the blue team there, then they know that everything's going to work out. That's when it fell apart for me as far as like the stakes. Because I was like, if that makes sense, if they even see that there's a blue team, then they know that they had to have made it further into the future to, destiny allows them to make it further into the future to have a blue team and come back to help them. So that's when it's like, just having that blue team there made me go, okay, so I guess everything's going to be okay. Which would be fine. Would be totally fine if they did that, if they made us invest in the characters. So like if then they made a couple of those main characters die, then it doesn't necessarily matter that things work out as humanity, but you're invested in the characters, and then it gets really grounded as far as, okay, well, we know things are going to work out, but wait, did these people make it out of it? Then you're invested in that more than just the world building.
Yeah, that's the thing is that
is what would have elevated it.
You have this incredibly vague, like, apocalypse full of a bunch of characters that we don't really care about. And so I'm just not invested in these stakes, man. The
most I was invested in was Robert Pattinson's character, and he actually did die.
Yeah.
Because you see that he's going to go back to actually help them.
Right.
Which is because when they went in there, they saw that somebody was dead with the red string on their bag, and then he finds out that that was his bag, and he's like, oh, that's how we made it out, because you end up going back to save us.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I mean, I get it. But at the same time, I don't really care about Robert Pattinson's character. I just feel like all these people working together didn't really click for me, and didn't have much of characters within themselves. They were just all heroes working against bad guys. I mean, it just felt like heroes moving through the next thing and the next action set piece to beat bad guy, and they didn't seem interesting or charming within themselves. They were just heroes. Woo, go good guys.
And the lady who the main lady in the movie, how she kills the guy, that was kind of like, you're not supposed to kill him because we have to make sure we get this thing out in time. And she kills him in time. Like, they get the thing out before she kills him, but I was like, you just made your character worse.
Yeah.
Like, you just risked the entire world. And she
well,
was like,
again, it feels like all this is they're risking, because why don't they just tell the protagonist everything from the get-go?
They
know that he
as
has
an audience member, if you put everything together, she's not risking the entire world, because in the theory that I propose, having people even come back, things are going to work out how they need to. But in the movie, you're supposed to go.
Still think that breaks it completely then. But,
well, it breaks the stakes of the movie, because then that everything's going to be okay. Because again, I'm going on the theory that you can't change anything, whatever.
But we've talked enough about that specifically. But I'm just saying that from a perspective of you're going back and you're trying to get this mission done, telling a pivotal part of it, which would be the protagonist, only half or even less of what's actually going on, feels uselessly weird. And why? I mean, I get why from the
whole movie was useless if you do the destiny point. But again, my theory is
so therefore you can't kind of do the destiny thing, and then you have to be altering it. But if you're making the willing choice to try and alter the future by sending people back, why not tell as they're coming in contact? If you can communicate, why not tell everybody, including him?
If you were, then yes. If you could change things and you were going back, you would. But again, it's destiny. It's going to happen, which makes the whole movie pointless as far as everything is going to happen, so it doesn't really matter. There's no
it's
stakes.
Pointless or it's stupid.
It's pointless because there's no stakes, but the point is during the movie you feel there's stakes, and that's all that matters. It's when you piece it together after you go, oh, it would have worked out anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And then you go, what the heck? And then you get into this in-depth conversation. That's why I think the movie was made. That's my opinion.
I don't like that.
All right. Well, we'll watch it again, and we'll see. Also, one last thing. The name, Tenet, is 10 and 10 meeting, which was the last bit of the movie, which was they each had 10 minutes, and that's where they meet within those last 10 minutes.
I guess that was
and it all comes down to them meeting within those last 10 minutes of the movie.
So
that was
interesting.
I don't know. I found
the future must have already. Oh my god!
Stop it! I just talking about the reason, the meaning for the part of the meaning for Tenet.
But the people in the movie named it that, so they must have already known that. So
The people in the movie didn't. Oh,
they named it Tenet. So if they named it for that reason, then that's why they named it. So they must have already known that was going to happen. So
no, I'm not. No, I'm not saying that's why they named it that. I'm just saying that was a double meaning. Listen, that you are going way too deep into that part. That's not necessarily why they named it Tenet. That's just why Christopher Nolan. There's a double meaning behind Tenet because that's the climax of the movie. That might not be why they named it that at all. That doesn't have.
Do we know why
they
named it Tenet?
I don't know. Tenet is an actual word, and I know this might sound really dumb. I didn't know that.
A landlord, like you have landlords have tenants, people who live in their building.
No, that's Tenent. That's tenant.
Oh,
Tenet is like it means belief
now
or
we
something.
Both look dumb.
Tenet definition is a principle or belief, especially one of the main principles of a religion or philosophy. So it's a main principle or belief. That's what tenet means.
Why is it?
I don't know. But we're not getting into that. I don't know. We're not getting into that. Christopher Nolan just wanted to mess with us and go, 2 tens.
Well,
and it's a palindrome.
I feel fully messed with in every possible way.
It's
this
a
movie.
palindrome. You spell it from one way to the other way, and it's the same forwards and backwards. Ooh. Now that you could maybe be seen as gimmicky. I like this movie because I think it has still a lot to unpack and more that we're going to learn from it. And I am under the impression that it gave me enough to look at time and time travel and verse and all that in a different way. And I feel like we spent almost too much time talking about that because I'm trying to think of some of the other
part of the movie.
Oh, I know, but I'm saying the other, I guess, really quickly to wrap up. Obviously, cinematography was great.
Yeah.
The score. Loved.
Yep.
I actually really liked the score.
Was it Hans Zimmer again?
It wasn't. It was the guy who did. Oh, I looked this up. It was the guy who did something else. What's the word? Score, not score. Composer.
Yeah.
Ludwig Göransson. He did something else and I can't remember what it was. Oh, he did Mandalorian, apparently.
Oh. Huh. He also did, apparently, he's at least listed on Creed, Black Panther, Fruitvale Station, Creed 2, Venom.
Oh, that's what it was, Black Panther. That's the other one I was thinking. Oh, he did Venom? Venom! All right. But honestly, I want to wrap that. I guess I don't have as much to say about the other things, especially since we just saw it. A good review is just purely how we thought and what made us think,
we talked about the big, or at least, the big criticism that we have with it. And that's, all the other aspects of it that we can basically just say, yeah, we're good. But there's not really much. I didn't feel like gushing about many of these things.
The blue room and red room scene, seeing that there was a place where that times were moving in different directions at the same time. Like you could see a reverse timeline and the previous and how they interacted. And like, that's what really put everything together was super cool to me. I loved that scene. That might have been my favorite scene in the whole movie.
Sure. Yeah.
And it was really, watching him fight himself was really cool when we saw how he was doing all the weird backwards movements and how that was perceived when he was doing it forwards. I was like, this is cool.
Yeah,
I really appreciate
I really
that.
want to go into this movie again with less of a cynical attitude towards it because that was my natural. I was just in an already bad place going into this movie, so I feel like I was harder on it than I maybe should have been. I still don't know if I'm gonna agree with all the weird time travel shit in this movie.
Right. I hope I didn't push you towards the direction of being more cynical now that you're like, well, now it doesn't make more sense, or now it doesn't even make.
No, I want to try to give the movie a full
everything?
chance. Yeah, because it's not. Christopher Nolan doesn't have a perfect track record of having everything he makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, I have problems with, obviously, Interstellar and stuff like that, but I feel like he's, the way I see this movie right now, I feel like he's too good to have made it that way. See what I'm saying? Like, he wouldn't screw up like that. He wouldn't make a movie that's quite that illogical in how it presents itself.
Again, I give him praise in the way of I think he invented a new way of looking at things, which I think he's good at. And I don't think it's illogical if you're able to try to perceive a new way of looking at time, but I could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm right, but that's what I got out of it the first time.
You can use that excuse with anything, We could excuse all the problems with Back to the Future that way. We could be like, well, Spielberg and all those guys were inventing a new way to look at time in which you could change your future by going to your past. Sure, but come on, that's still kind of stupid.
I disagree because I think as long as it follows the rules of the new way of looking at something, then it's fine. Just like, for example, any other sci-fi movie or crazy movie, superhero movie, there are rules, and as long as they follow those, cool, they invented a new way to look at this because now people can have powers because of this, which doesn't make sense, but follow those. I think it gave me enough clues that followed that because, again, we talked Back to the Future, and I can't think of a prime example, but they even said, here's a prime example. So when they left What's-Her-Name on the front porch, they were not creating alternate timelines. Like, they very much just left somebody there, and it didn't make sense how she got back.
No, that's a legit. Yeah, I agree. Like, that's a legit logical inconsistency of the film. I don't know because I didn't get what you got from watching this. Now we had two very different experiences, but I didn't get enough to jump to this brand new. Oh, in this universe, time just works magically different because that's I don't even know how you really present that in a movie by making it feel right. Because again, it's usually in film with realistic films when you have like a sci-fi aspect of it, if you're going to present, up is still up and down is still down, but there's crazy factor in it that changes how things work, right? Like in the Avengers universe, things still work. If you jump off a building, you're still going to go splat, except, Thor is a magical god and he can fly around. Okay, yeah, crazy thing, I can take that. But it's like, and just like in this, they created a crazy technology where they can inverse time for individuals and they can still interact with the forward moving of time. Crazy idea. But then on top of that, you now have to invent, and then as well as that, time in general just works completely different than how we understand time as normal. So without having just a massive dump of exposition that basically is telling the audience, listen, time works completely different in this universe I'm creating. I don't know how you present that to me in a way where I come to that conclusion where it doesn't feel weird, contrived,
Well, I think
awkward.
It's a little something you put together in a way that how they explain when they talk about the grandfather paradox, which is a point that I will be paying so much more attention to when I watch the movie. And I think we need to. But that's that's what I felt like they were trying to get across. And it was almost, I pieced it together that, I guess time would work differently in this way because of the way that they say that things happen because of destiny and all that.
To me, that sounds like you're kind of writing it for him, though.
I don't feel that way. Like I try to admit when I feel that way, but I don't feel that way. But again, I could be wrong. A huge maybe plot hole, and again, I don't have an answer till we watch this again, is that all 9 pieces, when he got all of them and buried all of them underneath his hometown and put them all together, and that's what they were trying to get out, was all 9 pieces of this thing.
Right, the algorithm.
That if it's used, it basically destroys the world by pushing everything backwards. Is maybe a little bit of flaw in my thinking, because why, if you push everything backwards, is everything just going to explode or cease to exist if you just invert everything all at once? That maybe means there is a correct way of time and an incorrect way of time, but it doesn't fully, I don't think, debunk what I was saying as far as
I guess
why
the
going
idea
backwards
that
does things.
Isn't the idea that if you send everything back, especially without a way of going forward again, then eventually you'll get to a place where time is moving forward. So all that we know will disappear, will be gone because you're moving backwards.
I don't think that was it, because then everybody can just still live 2,000 some years and they'd be fine. Like something was going to happen to where like everything basically exploded, or implode or cease to exist when you push everything backwards. I don't know why. Don't have an answer for you. Yep. I'm not going to go on a whole long explanation about it again. I just have to watch it again.
I know. I feel like from a viewer perspective, this podcast, this episode was probably hard to understand. Just like when we talked about one of the Back to the Future
people
things.
are not listening to it. If you've made it this far,
oh my God,
I'll give you $10. If you can give me proof that you listened to this entire thing,
it just sucks. And this is what turns me off from like time travel movies in general. It's just because they just get so messy when you get to the nitty gritty of them for the most part. You know what I mean?
Again, I've said this a million times, but if it gets messy in the same way, it gets annoying. This got messy in a new way, but also not in a way of like, oh, it just doesn't make sense, but it got messy and like I still feel like I have things to piece together. If I piece things together even more so and it makes 0 sense, then I might dislike this movie more. But I'm saying I always felt like I was given enough things to keep me entertained, wanting to watch it again, feeling like I want to piece it together, and not completely lost. Well, or let's say, put it this way, not completely thrown off the bus.
Yeah, I never felt completely lost. I just felt like a lot of shit just didn't make sense, and they were just kind of glossing over it. But I'm hoping I'm wrong, and that I just went into this in a weird way.
Maybe you're wrong. I hope you're wrong. Maybe I'm right. Maybe you're
I
right.
hope I'm wrong too, because I don't want to basically say that this movie is just kind of dumb and doesn't make it. And it's just because if what what I came from this movie is correct, then Nolan basically just made flimsy excuses to have this gimmick of time moving backwards in order to create cool effects.
Yep.
And couldn't come up with a good enough reason in the writing to justify it.
Yep.
And that's going to kill it for me.
And fair. At the same time, I feel like this will still, even if things
it's
don't
all,
fully make sense, this is still going to be a movie that I will show people and probably rewatch just because it's a cool concept, even if parts of it fall apart. And that's more of a subjective perspective.
Just depends on how. I mean, it doesn't have to be 100% foolproof by any means. And I don't even know if that would be 100% possible. But I'm just saying that
The Incredibles, perfect movie.
Well,
all the way through.
I'm talking about when you're talking about time travel. If they make Incredibles 3 and it's like we're going back in time, I'm gonna be like, nope.
Well,
fuck
Incredibles
off.
2 is already bad, but whatever. Anyways,
Well,
hot take.
I'm saying they're not actually literally going back in time. They're just redoing the same plot. But you get my point. I hope I'm wrong about this. I hope I can go back and it's a lot more clever. Because if it is, if it works out, then this movie is probably genius. Outside of I still don't think that they're going to make a way for me to care about these characters. Unfortunately, emotionally tied to them. But hopefully, we can at least get to the point where how everything works makes more sense to me.
Yep.
And kind of clicks.
Again, I'm on board enough to where I can say I enjoyed it. But hopefully I will continue with that perspective. Hopefully you're wrong. Who knows?
Yep.
I could be right. You could be right. We could be both wrong. That's movies, brother.
Yep. We're going to see this again, and maybe we might have a second Tenet episode or something.
Honestly, we might have to.
Yeah. Because I know this is already a fucking long one.
I think our longest episode probably now.
We keep breaking new records.
And eventually we're going to do a 5-hour podcast.
Jesus Christ.
And you want to do a second episode on this one?
Hopefully the second one will be just listen to the second one. Don't listen to the first 10 episode. Just look at the first one, the second one, because that one we'll know what the fuck we're talking about. Okay, we're good.
If you guys are listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please give us a review. Be much appreciated. Be much appreciated. Check out us on YouTube. We on YouTube now. We filmed a video that's not just a podcast. We did some Back to the Future trivia, more time travel stuff. And whoever won this fancy DeLorean here. If you're watching YouTube, you can see that. But you'll have to tune in the video to see who owns this DeLorean. And it'll be... we're going to put shelves behind us to keep our little trophies for our trivia videos. But yeah, we got videos. We got videos coming out. Woo!
Yeah.
Follow us at That's Movies Brother on Instagram. Follow me at Tyler C. Gillette on Instagram. And I got a YouTube channel now, Tyler Gillette. That was it. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.